Mom always told Aika that one day she would introduce them to her uncle, who looked like a watchdog. No, a puppy. She was sure that she would love him too. You couldn't find a kinder person. Her precious little brother. All her toys were given to her by him. Mommy's precious little brother. His mommy loves him, so the baby loves him, or so she thought. The man sighed heavily and asked the old man, who must have gone crazy to ask him about this. He called out to the girl sitting next to him, who was ostentatiously ignoring him. "Hey, nut?" The red-haired man turned to the girl again with displeasure. But then Aika exploded and angrily shouted that she was not a nut, which meant she was a shorty, the man said. "And not a shorty," the girl answered him screaming. "But who then?" he asked. "A dumbass, maybe." He kept wanting her to come up. Aika was very angry. She could not believe that in front of her was the only brother that her mother had spoken about. And such a man turned out to be so terrible. Here he is, Cassel de Legier, Aika's uncle. Approaching the girl himself, he asked if she knew that they would now have to live together. However, he said he is not interested in raising children. So, Castle threatened discontentedly, "Behave quietly and don't be afraid underfoot," asking if she understood. Aika thought with displeasure, what a displeased face, and she was not used to raising adults. He ordered her to answer, and she reluctantly said that she understood. Since she understood, he continued, then let her go and eat something and asked her to stop flickering before her eyes. But she only ate, the girl said, but the man insisted on eating more, or she would remain a nut forever. And after that, he left, slamming the door. What an evil uncle, just try to beg her to stay with him later. The girl sighed heavily. Her name is Aika de Valiart. She left her loving grandfather to live with her uncle, who can't stand her. The reason for this is her desire to save her uncle. Ah, she sighed dramatically. How can an adult not understand the heart of a child? Uncle? Is he an idiot? The baby lived in a large country called Woeford. On these lands there were wars for centuries, but now the Valiart, Deslin, and Nodium families. They all united with the emperor and stood up for the defense of Woeford. The history of House Valiart is short, but they are said to be the most famous. Her grandfather, Allo de Valiart, was a great man who served 2 generations of rulers. Uncle is the strongest swordsman. And Aika's mother, Saria de Valiart, was the chancellor of Woeford herself, and, according to recollections, was always busy. She hardly had any days off. Even after she was born, she continued to work in the palace. She didn't even know her dad. But one day her mother told her that he was destined for great deeds, and when she believed that they could be happy without dad. Then that incident happened. The guy thanked the chancellor for coming to his aid, but she was only doing her duty. Aika called her mother to finish quickly, because she promised to read to her, and Saria said that she was already on her way. "What is this, daughter?" the girl asked Aika. She usually tolerated it like this, but today he doesn't leave her side for a second. And the girl thoughtfully said that for some reason she felt that she would miss her very much. Saria was very touched by her daughter's words. But suddenly their carriage was hit, and the driver shouted that it was an ambush. The knights accompanying them ran forward to protect the royal chancellor. However, they were defeated by the attackers, who were in search of the necklace in their raid. "The unknown person found the object, but it was not there," he reported to the head. The man grinned, realizing that he had already been pulled out, and ordered them to return before the storm hit. But he ordered another subordinate to hide and look again. At the end of the dialogue between the attackers, Aika came to her senses. A drop of blood fell from her mother's face onto hers, and the girl screamed loudly in fear. Saria calmed her daughter down and kindly asked her not to scream. And, taking out a stone that sparkled in the night, she asked Aika to swallow what her mother was giving her, and she forcefully shoved the stone from the necklace into Aika's mouth, who cowered in fear and misunderstanding. Tears flowed from her eyes, and Saria, hugging her beloved daughter to herself, asked her to forgive her for not being able to protect her. Aika asked many questions, but the girl asked her to listen to her and said that Aika now had special eyes. She asked the little girl not to be surprised by anything, because whatever she saw or learned would help her save the people dear to her. Saria asked her not to tell anyone, because it was their secret, Aika promised her mommy, and begged her just not to get sick. Smiling, Saria said that her daughter was smart and asked her to remember her promise. She should be careful. But when Aika opened her eyes, her mother was gone. Grandfather said that she was not found in the carriage with her mother, but nearby in the forest. All her memories after the incident were mixed up, and she was also not allowed to know anything about the investigation. She only heard that His Imperial Majesty was beside himself with rage. The Emperor was an old friend of her mother's. Of course he was angry. Besides, she was smart and responsible. Therefore, it was not only he who was extremely sad. That day, Aika cried a lot. But on that same day, she met her uncle for the first time. Seeing her uncle with her mother's hair and eye color, she decided that she had come back to life. That's why she clung to the uncle she had just met and didn't let go. After that, she had the chance to live with her grandfather, and she understood what her mother meant. She gained the ability to sense the danger threatening others in advance, the ability to foresee. At first, Aika saw the future in her dreams, but later the visions began to appear even when she was awake. Having become accustomed to this ability, she learned to prevent accidents with the maids she liked. And then she had that dream. The scary man swore and said that he would not let him get away with this. And taking the sword out of its sheath with a cry and a desire for death, Ligira ran to castle. A dream in which something dangerous caught the uncle by surprise, and the little girl woke up from the nightmare and burst into tears. Thinking about who attacked her uncle, she decided that this would not work. Now, knowing the future, she cannot just watch from the sidelines. For my mother's sake, and so that my uncle doesn't die, she will stick close to him and protect him. Little Miss was asked if she needed anything else. Linda, a servant of the Ligira estate, came to Aika, and the little girl's mood immediately improved. The little girl asked the girl if she by any chance knew where her uncle was, and Linda became thoughtful. And I remembered that he said that he would go out for a walk. Probably now in the dressing room, though, I asked Aika. The girl said that she would then go to her uncle for a short while. The maid, dumbfounded, asked, "Forgive me." Linda asked if it wouldn't be better to have something to eat in the room, and she would make her some sweet cocoa, but Aika was determined to meet her uncle. And soon Linda, with persuasion, gave in, saying that she would take the lady home. Aika was only glad. Upon arrival, Aika happily told her uncle that she was here. But Castle closed the door in front of the girl with displeasure, and Aika, not accepting this, continued to pound. She asked him to open the door, and suddenly the man unexpectedly reminded her that he had told her to be obedient. Aika shuddered in surprise. But the next moment she happily agreed with Castle. She suggested to her uncle that they play mother's daughters, but he didn't understand why the hell he should play that. But then the little girl grabbed the man's leg tightly and wouldn't let go. Cassell tried to shake her off his leg like a parasite and shouted for the little one to let go because it was time for him to go. But Aika flatly refused to let go. She was as stubborn as her mother, he said, and Aika replied that her mother was not stubborn. Without letting go, the little girl looked at him pitifully and said that she would give him all her treats if only he would not leave. And then Cassell asked if she thought her doll-like eyes would stop him. "That's enough," he said, and ordered her to let go before he threw her, but she stubbornly screamed only this time. And she swore that she was asking only today. It was already difficult for the man to maintain his composure. And Aika, crying, thought that if her uncle left like this, he would suffer greatly in a fight with the man from the dream. One day, she secretly overheard a conversation between her uncle and grandfather, the latter eliminating people who do not get along with Valyart, one by one. In other words, Uncle has a huge number of enemies now. Therefore, if she does not stop her uncle, he will leave her just like her mother. The girl thought about how much would have changed if she were here with her, and the image of her mother popped into her head. Finally, the girl detached herself from Castle's leg, but turned to her uncle. And sitting on her knees crying, she admitted that she missed her mother. Meanwhile, Castle buttoned his shirt, but Aika's words touched him. And kneeling in front of her, he advised her to look in the mirror since she was so bored. But Aika didn't look much like his mother. She was tall and had red hair. "He looks more like her." "I am?" the man asked in surprise. "Yes, exactly the same," the girl answered, laughing. This created problems. Castle sighed heavily and asked why she sat on his neck, and Aika asked if he hated her because she was a thorn. The guardian did not understand and asked who told her this. Then the girl asked, "It means he loves and wants to live together." "Are you crazy?" he asked. "He neither loves nor hates. He is not good at raising children." So he advised her to return to the old man. And then the little girl said that she liked him, her mother told her a lot about him, and she really wanted to meet him. So she hoped that her uncle liked her too. These words touched Castle. Aika wanted to get along with him and asked if she could stay, promising that she would not interfere too much. Looking at his niece, Cassell thought. In this little girl he saw his sister, and she in turn saw him as her mother. The end of his sister's name accidentally escaped his lips, and he immediately jumped up from his seat. Saving face, he told the girl to do as she pleased, and the little girl was surprised. He said that she could run all over the house, do whatever she wanted, but if she got in the way too much, she would regret it. Jumping with happiness, Aika asked, "Is it true? Is it true? Honestly, honestly." And her uncle asked, "Does she really think he is lying?" Then the girl asked her uncle to put his finger on the contract he had drawn up for her, that he would never leave her. "What's this?" Castle asked suspiciously. "A contract. What's wrong?" she exclaimed. "Just apply it already." "How meticulous," grumbled the uncle. "She is definitely the daughter of Saria. He promised that he would put the imprint later, properly." Aika agreed and asked her uncle if he was going anywhere today. Yes, he wasn't going anywhere, Castle answered. He would only ride a horse in the garden. Aika already agreed with this and watched him go. Mom said that everything good should be recorded, she shouldn't let herself be deceived, it's good that she documents. Uncle said that he won't go anywhere, so everything is decided, thought Aika, but suddenly, as if enchanted, she froze. She dreamed of her uncle going out for a ride on a horse and of a horse that had gone crazy. Aika woke up on the floor, gasping for breath from fear after what she saw. What was that? She thought with alarm and horror as she caught her breath. Uncle, is something dangerous really going to happen? The little girl thought anxiously. These were already 2 dangers in one day. Isn't that too much? Thought Aika, and ran into her uncle's office. However, instead of him, she came across the butler of the Leger estate, Repo, who was surprised by the appearance of the miss. Having asked if she was looking for the gentleman by any chance, he said that he had gone for a horse ride. Why is Uncle always in such a hurry? The stable was somewhere here, thought Aika as she ran up to the stable. And finally she found Castle. As soon as this happened, she loudly called out to her uncle, who just wanted to rest. And she angrily called him a liar, because he told her that he would not go anywhere. What? Cassell asked, stunned. Is he skating in the garden of his house where he lied? So what? The girl exclaimed. And shouting, she said that he couldn't ride it. The man sighed heavily and asked the nut what she was talking about. Suddenly he noticed that something was wrong with his horse's condition. It seemed as if he was shaking in pain. Aika noticed what was going on and asked her uncle, horses usually don't lift their hooves. While he was perplexed, Aika got off his hands and went to the horse to console him. But suddenly Castle abruptly lifted Aika by the collar, which frightened her, and he indignantly asked her if she didn't know that it was dangerous to approach horses like that, and if she really wanted to be kicked. Aika told her uncle in fear that she was afraid that he was in pain and would get hurt. Castle sighed and ordered that the horse be taken for examination. The little girl immediately perked up and asked if he would go for a ride, but how else could he answer since the horse was sick? This meant that her uncle wouldn't get hurt today. Aika was happy. What a relief, the girl thought enthusiastically, and Cassell watched her. He asked the nut what she was so happy about, knowing that she had done wrong. And he himself thought that if she had stayed with the old man, she would have grown like a hothouse flower, and why did she even get out and expose herself to danger? That was why he didn't want to bring her here. By this point, Aika's eyes were already closing. So Cassell carefully carried her into the room and put her to bed. He thought she was so tired that she fell asleep right away, so why did she continue to cling to him? And even in her sleep, the little girl held on to Castle and asked her uncle not to leave. Cassell paused. Seriously, something had to be done before he got attached to her. 3 days later, Aika came to the office looking for her uncle. The bodyguard, who was also there, happily greeted the miss, but Castle was not particularly happy about her visit. The man asked why she couldn't sit in her room and why she had come, and the little girl again said that she was not a nut, and she happily said that she wanted to show her drawing, saying that she had depicted herself and her uncle in it. It was he, Castle asked reluctantly, seeing some kind of demon next to the girl in the drawing. Aika giggled and asked if it had worked out well. He decided for himself that it didn't matter, and said let Linda help her get ready. The guardian explained that they would visit the old man, that is, they would visit the grandfather's estate. Aika was very happy about this. And she asked her uncle if she could prepare a gift for him. There were delicious cupcakes in the morning, and she wanted to share with her grandfather. Castle said that she could do whatever she wanted and sent her to Linda to pack. Aika was inspired by the trip. She hadn't seen her grandfather for a long time and wondered what had gotten into her uncle. But in any case, she was very happy about it, and soon they arrived at the estate. Aika immediately ran to her grandfather, and he in turn was waiting for her with open arms. The little girl admitted that she missed him very much. The grandfather was glad that his girl had arrived. He thought that he would turn gray before he saw her. Castle looked. He was very careful about his hair. After all, his family also had red hair. The grandfather was indignant. He started an argument again, and the color is like Aika's. So they are beautiful, right? He asked, and the granddaughter answered yes. The man invited the puppy inside. He realized that she had not gained any weight at all, thinking that this bastard was starving her. But Aika denied this. And then she remembered that she had brought a delicious gift. Her grandfather asked what could fit in such hands. Her arrival was already a gift for him. As agreed, they snacked on cupcakes together and finished it off successfully. The maid asked her if she liked it and if she wanted more juice. The little girl did not refuse and thanked her. But then the girl asked Marie when her grandfather and uncle would come, which caught the servant by surprise. And she awkwardly replied that they were discussing something very important. Aika believed the adults, but suddenly she heard a sound similar to a carriage driving away. And I instantly realized what this meant, thinking in horror, it can't be. Leaving Marie behind, she rushed to the balcony to see with her own eyes what was happening. Running up to the balcony, she looked down at the road with alarm. And suddenly I realized that my grandfather was standing by the carriage, and my uncle was in the carriage itself. What? But why is he there? They haven't even eaten. Not that, Aika thought in horror. Is he abandoning her? Without wasting any time, she ran down to the carriage where her grandfather met her in surprise. He grabbed his granddaughter and said that she would get hurt if she ran like that, and Aika screamed for her grandfather to let her go. At that moment, the uncle's carriage drove away. The little girl cried and wondered if he was really leaving, but she just wanted to save him. Aika shouted after Castle not to leave and repeated this phrase again. Unfortunately, all her efforts to shout were in vain. The grandfather tried to bribe his granddaughter with toys. But the girl, wrapped in a blanket, puffed up like a chipmunk and did not leave the room. The grandfather couldn't morally accept that his little girl was looking at him with such a face. Aika whined and told her grandfather that if he hadn't interfered, she would have caught up with him. He asked her if she didn't like living with him. He asked her to stop crying and offered to go out and eat something delicious, but she refused. Her uncle abandoned her, although he promised not to. It's so cruel. From now on, she doesn't care about him, Aika decided. While pouring tea, the butler said that several days had passed since the lady's departure, and the estate had become very lonely. But Castle said that he personally liked the silence, Repo thought, laughing nervously, apparently only for his master. Later in the evening, the gentleman's bodyguard James knocked on the door of his office, and Cassell asked him to come in. He asked the knight why he had come at such an hour, and James reported that a man had arrived from the Duchy of Valiart. With the notification of the young lady, Cassell became alarmed and asked what he had conveyed. The bodyguard replied that, as the messenger had reported, she had fallen asleep crying the first night and had been absolutely depressed ever since. She hardly eats because she is waiting for him, and he asked with pity if maybe he should visit her. Castle was deep in thought. It won't last long, he replied. She's a child, so she'll soon be happier with the old man. Repo was also worried. But then Cassell, seeing that they had a lot of free time, sent both of them back to work. Left alone, Castle thought that she loved delicacies very much, and was so happy then. Throwing down the papers, he leaned back tiredly and sighed heavily. He shouldn't have gotten more attached to her. He needed to cut it all off now before it was too late. But then the man sent everything to hell. Late at night, he drove out to catch a glimpse of her face to put an end to it. They say she doesn't eat, so he'll just check how she looks, he thought as he approached the duchy. He was here to see her, so there was no need to come through the front gate and make a scene. If he was not mistaken, the nut slept in the room where Saria used to live. And I was already about to head there so as not to stay for long, but suddenly I saw something. In the darkness nearby, two men discussed the purpose of their arrival at the Valiart estate. They were supposed to separate and meet at the door of the room, but then Cassell interrupted them and asked where they were going. Leaning his sword against the back of one of the men's heads, he said, "Look, there are bugs in here." "Cassell de Légier," they cried, and the boy asked if they were prepared for the consequences, since they had the audacity to attack the Valiart estate. Grabbing the man by the throat, he angrily asked who was behind this and how dare he. But suddenly Cassell felt that someone had raised a sword behind his head. He parried the blow, but was extremely embarrassed by the encounter. And he asked, frowning, recognizing the old man. At the same time, the father recognized Cassell. He asked his son what was going on here, and he explained, "An attack? Some damn idiots decided they could come here." "There may still be stragglers," he said, and thought anxiously that this meant the nut was in danger. He shouted to the old man that he was leaving these bastards to him, and he himself rushed to the estate. He hoped that Aika was sleeping peacefully in bed, and looked inside the room to make sure. And indeed, she slept soundly. Castle thanked the heavens. But suddenly something in this package confused him, and he, horrified, decided to check his guesses. Cursing, he pulled the blanket off the bed and discovered a pile of folded toys underneath. "Oh, this nut," he said through clenched teeth, and asked anxiously where she had disappeared to. Aika was sleeping, but her chest felt somehow tight, as if something was squeezing her body. She didn't understand what it was. And opening her eyes, she was frightened, seeing a snake in front of her. The snake hissed at her to do so and opened its mouth, everything inside screaming danger. And at that very moment, Aika woke up for real. What kind of dream was this, she thought, an omen? She managed to recover quickly as she heard a terrible sound from the street. She remembered how her mother told her about the scary shadows that sometimes appeared. She said that we need to hide when they come, and so now she suggested practicing playing hide-and-seek in advance. Here they are, Aika realized as she jumped out of bed, the same shadows that visited her when she was with her mother. The little girl hid and thought that if she hid here, then her grandfather would come and save her. She must not get caught. But suddenly she heard footsteps stop right in front of her. Her heart began to beat with fear that she had been found. Fearfully, she remembered her grandfather, mother, and uncle. But suddenly, Aika heard a voice that was cursing at the nut and asking where the hell she could have gone. "Uncle." A hesitant voice from the closet sounded hopefully, and Cassell perked up. He abruptly opened the closet door, and Aika climbed out of the chest, and crying, made sure that it was her uncle in front of her. Cassell asked worriedly what she was doing in such a place, and Aika still couldn't believe her eyes. As soon as she got out of the closet, she immediately threw herself into her uncle's arms, saying that she was scared. She asked if the shadows had gone away, if the hide-and-seek was over, and if he knew how sad she had been when he had left. Her uncle had asked her to calm down. "What hide-and-seek?" he asked the girl. Was this really not the first time she had played like this? She nodded and said that her mother told her to always stay here during hide-and-seek. Grandpa's closet is just like theirs, so she told them to hide in it if the shadows came here. "What?" Cassell asked, stunned, and wondered what the hell Saria had been doing there. But then Aika clenched her fist and asked her uncle if he would take her with him. He had promised not to abandon her. After thinking, the man asked, did he just throw it away or just leave it? And Aika screamed that it was the same thing, a liar. She asked her uncle not to leave if he was leaving, take her with him, and she cried out that she would not let him go. Collecting his thoughts, Cassell sighed heavily. He had no words, but he still gently lifted the baby into his arms. And having sat her down on the bed, he said that he would not leave her and asked Aika to sleep a little longer. But the little girl no longer believed this deceiver, and Cassell insisted that he was telling the truth. Then she told him to sit right there and start looking for something, and his uncle asked why. She suggested that they tie each other up and go to bed together, and go home together tomorrow. In the morning, the grandfather came to check on his granddaughter and son, and at the sight of such a scene, he grinned. Afterwards, I asked him, if this couldn't be avoided, why did he pretend to be such an untouchable person? Since this happened, Cassell said that he was taking the nut back, and Aika happily said goodbye to her grandfather. The father asked his son to keep in mind that if even one tear fell from Aika's face, he would deprive him of his title. The son understood everything. He admitted that he really missed the little naughty girl, and Aika promised her grandfather that she would come often. Cassell asked his father if he had caught all the uninvited guests, and the Duke answered, of course. They will pay with blood for underestimating the Valyart family, he explained coldly. Excellent, Cassell said with relief, and asked his father to notify him if there was any news. Then he entrusted Aika to him, but it was clear, even without words, the little girl told her grandfather that she was leaving. Arriving at the estate, Aika first of all informed Linda that she had returned. The maid was overjoyed at the Mrs. return and said that the house seemed empty without her. It seemed that she had become more attached than she thought. Aika laughingly admitted that she missed him too. Linda said that she might not be strong, but she would become her protector and support, and vowed to protect her from places that were against her heart. Aika didn't want to be scolded, so Linda said that she would try to explain it in a way that wouldn't get her scolded. Linda was on her side, which was very encouraging for the girl, so if she can lure everyone to her side, even if her uncle gets angry, she will be protected. When her uncle tries to scold her or kick her out, perhaps they can work together to stop him. She said she wanted to be friends with the others like she had with Linda, and the girl asked how she planned to achieve that. Aika asked Linda to tilt her ear towards her for a second, and she told her friend about her insidious plan. Linda giggled at the girl's plan, but still said it was a great idea. The little girl was proud that she had come up with a method to win everyone over to her side. Returning, Cassell and James did not understand why everyone in the estate seemed enchanted and had strange expressions on their faces. Suddenly, Aika ran up to them and greeted her uncle and James, asking if they had arrived without incident. Smiling, Cassell said that he told her to behave. James greeted the miss and asked how he could help. Then Aika said that she had something for them and took out a present for James. For him, the bodyguard asked sheepishly. Yes, Aika answered. He can pin it on his lapel. She said that she prayed to the flower to bring him happiness and thanked it for always protecting her. James was very touched by the young lady's attention and thanked her and said that he would take care of him. What is this commotion so early in the morning? Wondered Cassell. Maybe it was the work of Nut. Although, seeing how everyone was having fun, I realized that it was better to ignore this, otherwise whining would be inevitable. He told Aika to give it to him already, but then the little girl said that she would not bother them anymore and said goodbye to her uncle. Cassell's world collapsed, and his bodyguard was stunned by his master's gambling. And what about him? Thought Cassell with irritation and resentment, left without a gift. The chef gave the girl an unusual dish, and she enthusiastically asked what it was. Sophie said that these were root vegetables fried until golden brown, her return gift for Miss. Although it wasn't meat, it was simply delicious. The cook suggested something else for next time, and Castle was a little jealous. Pointing to the noise that had been raised, he asked Sophie not to get carried away with her, but the woman said that thanks to Miss, every day was filled with happiness. Then the man asked the nut if she had forgotten anything. "I don't think so," she answered, overcoming herself, praising the potatoes and telling her uncle to eat more too. She reminded her that when he eats, he is deaf and dumb, Aika agreed, but suddenly remembered something. The girl said that she wanted to ask her uncle for something. Castle asked what it was, and she handed him a letter with the imperial coat of arms on it. Aika said that her name was on it, so she took it from her uncle's table and asked him to accompany her to the palace. He asked if she knew the emperor. "No," the girl answered, but he was a friend of her mother and there was an invitation in the letter. And she was not in the palace, so her uncle should go with her, but Castle said he did not want to, which is why she was indignant. "Why?" asked Cassel. "Maybe because he has an empty chest?" Aika asked indignantly, "and what is that supposed to mean?" He answered unimportantly and explained that he was leaving and told her to leave the plate clean. This was too much for Aika. She noticed that her uncle had become completely dejected, and Sophie said that she had not known that their master was so petty. In this situation, she might not get into the palace, and continuing to eat, she thought, nothing can be done. Cassel had looked upset since then. Apparently, James thought, he was offended that Miss had not given him the brooch. He didn't believe that the angel had deprived her own uncle. Then why? But as soon as they entered the office, they discovered a gift left on the table. It looks like Miss left it, so she was late because she was preparing the best gift. James asked to try it on. "Seriously? Why did he put that on himself?" Cassel asked, picking up the brooch. What was so special about this inconspicuous little thing, he asked, but deep down he was pleased that he had not been forgotten. He asked James if he had also received a gift in a box. "No, without," he replied. "Perhaps," the bodyguard suggested, "the Miss made it only for the one she loves the most." Cassel chuckled proudly and ordered him to stop flattering and report. James noticed how he became more cheerful and thanked Miss. He reported that the inspection of the fragments of the crew of the people who attacked the Valliard estate was completed. Out of 45, 7 remained. Except for those who were tortured, everyone committed suicide, ended their lives, as if that was what they were hoping for. Boring, he ordered to find everyone. And he also asked him to tell the nut to prepare for a visit to the imperial palace tomorrow. James was worried about the backlog of work, but Cassel said he would put it aside and told him to get moving. The next morning, Aika asked her uncle if it was cute how Linda dressed her up so beautifully. And suddenly she noticed that her uncle was wearing the brooch she had made and said that it suited him very well. Embarrassed, Castle asked if she was getting ready for the party and ordered him to jump in already. Aika asked him to wait for her. But then the man froze, remembering something. And returning to the girl, he asked her to put it on before they left. This, Aika exclaimed anxiously when her uncle put the pendant on her neck. When they arrived at the palace, Aika felt like everyone was looking at her and she felt uncomfortable. That's why she asked her uncle if she could take off the pendant, because her uncle's name was too big. But Castle refused and asked to wear it all the time and not to cause problems. She felt awkward, but the answer remained the same. The whole time they were in the palace, Aika tried to persuade her uncle to remove the pendant, but he did not give in to persuasion. A man entered the room, apologizing for being late. He had cleared the morning of work in advance, but he was still late. And noticing the girl, he asked if she must be Aika. The girl looked out from behind her uncle in surprise, and she gazed in enchantment at the man who was His Majesty the Emperor of Woeford, Winchester Gaia Celador. The little girl remembered that her mother always said that she should know his name. Purple eyes, as a symbol of the royal family, and black hair like a starless night like hers. When she was studying with her mother, she said that Emperor Riddell also had black hair. This color is more common than she thought. She approached the emperor but became confused, looking at him and thinking about her own things. And suddenly, coming to her senses, she introduced herself as the granddaughter of Allo de Valliart, Aika de Valliart. The emperor laughed, noticing her politeness, and said that he was pleased to meet her. And getting down on one knee in front of the little girl, he asked if she would mind if he hugged her. "Of course," Aika answered joyfully, spreading her arms. The emperor was delighted and very touched by his friend's daughter. He couldn't even imagine that she had grown so much and said that he had been looking forward to meeting her. He thanked little Aika for coming to visit him. Winchester said that she looks a lot like Syria, and Aika asked His Imperial Majesty he is also a friend of her mother. Of course, the man replied, Syria and Castle are his dear friends. And he asked if it was Castle who gave her this necklace. Very sweetly, Aika immediately grimaced, and she sheepishly admitted that it was her uncle who told her to put it on. Winchester said it was wonderful. Suddenly, Aika remembered that she had a gift with her for His Majesty. A present, the Emperor asked with interest. And Aika handed him the brooch, saying that she made it herself and thanked him for inviting her today. Give it to him, Winchester asked, surprised and embarrassed. Suddenly, Cassel cleared his throat, drawing attention to himself and quietly hinting that his radiance was more dazzling. Smiling, Winchester accepted Aika's gift and thanked the girl. Of all the gifts he received, this one was the most special. He promised to keep it carefully. But since he received it, he should respond in kind, right? And turning to his assistant, the Emperor asked if she could bring it. Lola understood him. She brought a box wrapped in black cloth, and Aika asked with interest what it was. Winchester explained that Saria once asked about this, said that Aika was smart and she would definitely need it. Only now can he give her this, the key to the old archives of the Imperial Palace. Mom touchedly asked Ike. He explained that such archives store very ancient books. They contain knowledge that they don't even know about and much more. Saria personally said this. She was sure that Aika was able to find something special when she was curious. She could look there at any time. It was the gift that Mom asked for. The gift that her mother gave her. The girl felt her warmth in it. Suddenly she remembered that she needed to thank Her Imperial Majesty. She bowed in gratitude, and Winchester said that she could come to him even if not for the archive. Okay, the girl replied and laughed cheerfully. Aika asked her uncle to look after the key, and Castle said with displeasure that now he was ordering him around. The little girl said that he couldn't be lost. Oh, and he wouldn't leave the last word, asked the uncle. Winchester told Cassel and Ike that someone wanted to see them and he was already at the palace. He wanted to meet, the little girl asked. It was his nephew, the same age as Aika, and the Emperor thought they could become friends, so he invited him. Friend Aika was inspired. He may seem a little prim at first, but he is a good kid and asked Aika to be kind to him. The boy greeted His Imperial Majesty, the son of the Empire, and his uncle asked Ryan to come over and say hello. The girl looked at the boy in fascination and suddenly thought that he was handsome, beautiful as moonlight. Ryan extended his hand to the girl and, having stated his name, asked what hers was. About 2 years ago, Ryan Winterus Calpodia was looking at flowers and wondering if his dad would like them if he gave them to him. If she had known that Winchester would not want to marry, she would have convinced him to become emperor instead of him. Voices could be heard in the house. There were also cries that the emperor should get engaged. There was no heir, and Ryan was the way out of the situation. The boy looked into the room and was met with displeasure by Duchess Pella de Notium. Father, Duke Richard of Winterus, asked Ryan where his manners were and why he entered without knocking. The kid apologized, but then the woman pointed to his hands, which were covered in dirt, and reminded him that he was the future heir to the throne. She asked him if he shouldn't behave properly and ordered him to throw away the dirty grass, knocking the flowers out of his hands. Yes, the father coldly agreed with his grandmother he could no longer indulge his whims. He addressed Ryan Winterus Calpodia rather coldly, which frightened the boy. His father told him to act in accordance with his position, and he also sent him to the Imperial Palace with the young Lord Denotium so that he could study hard. If Winchester really was left without a successor, he would become emperor, his father proclaimed. Aika greeted Ryan and said that she was glad to meet him. The boy was also pleased. He realized that she was Lady Valliart. Winchester said they would get along. They were both 7 years old, so they could be friends. But suddenly, His Highness was informed that it was time for him to begin his duties. He understood everything and said that he would be there soon. He told the children to have fun in the garden, and he was expecting Cassel at the next meeting. Winchester asked Aika to take care of herself and come to him if something bothered her. Castle told the Nuts that he would wait for them here, so he asked them not to create problems. Aika asked if he wouldn't come in to play with them. Uncle asked what he would do among kids like them. Aika snorted and said that when he changes his mind, they won't take him. And, taking Ryan by the hand, she dragged him along with her, joyfully saying, "Go ahead, let's leave Uncle and play ourselves." The little girl asked what game they would choose, whether he liked hide and seek, or whether they would build sandcastles. I asked him what he wanted. "Not really," Ryan answered gloomily, and Aika turned around in surprise. He let go of their hands and said that it was boring and for little children, and he didn't play that kind of game. There was silence. Aika thought everything over and realized that his behavior had become different. He had changed. Without giving up, she continued to offer him games, but they were all considered childish. Suddenly, something just came to her mind. The girl asked, "How about it?" And because there were no specifics, it piqued Ryan's interest. The girl held out the plucked daisies to him and asked if he liked the flowers. They triggered Ryan and he said no. Then Aika reminded him that adults love flowers too. Her mother always went to the flower shop and bought flowers. Suddenly Ryan knocked the flowers out of her hands and angrily asked who planted this nasty thing. There were no adults here. He asked to let him rest. They had already said hello, and there was no need to force himself to be friends with him. But then Aika said enthusiastically, "Flowers, apparently Ryan doesn't like them very much." These words hurt the boy because it was not true. But saving face, he said. He doesn't hate them completely, just a little bit. Aika understood that he liked them a little bit. And rushing off to the flower beds, she told the boy to wait for her there. What was she planning? Ryan thought anxiously and touchingly. After all this, she should return to the marquee. So why is she happy when she is alone? He doesn't need friends. While he was thinking about this, Aika had already returned and enthusiastically asked how he liked it, after holding out her hands, in which lay the flower ring that she gives him in honor of their acquaintance. The boy was embarrassed and silent for a moment, but then squeezed out the phrase that he didn't need friends. "What?" asked Aika. "Is that quite sad?" "No," answered Ryan. "That's only for kids." And then the girl reminded him that he was a child. Her uncle told her that children only need to eat well and play a lot. And the rest is the responsibility of adults. Aika wanted to be friends with Ryan. She wanted to make flower rings together and meet again, the little girl admitted. And so she asked if he would be her friend. Ryan was extremely touched by her speech. Then the girl held out a ring made from a flower and asked Ryan if he would take it. Ryan recoiled in surprise and asked what. Taking the flower ring from Aika's hands, Ryan thought, "My friend, is he allowed to do this?" Yes, father said that he could no longer indulge his whims, said that he did not need her. Having someone like a friend is not necessary, but it is extremely painful. Aika called out to Ryan in alarm. She asked him why he didn't like it so much and apologized, saying that they weren't obligated to be friends. But wiping away tears with a trembling hand, Ryan told Aika that this was not so. He thanked the little girl and said that he also wanted to be friends with her and invited her to be friends. The boys were walking together and discussing the pastry shop that Aika wanted to go to. Ryan realized what a sweet tooth she had. He invited her to come to his estate because their cook works wonders. It sounded great, and she said that she would also bring something. Suddenly, Aika began to feel sick and a chill ran down her spine. Ryan worriedly asked his friend what happened. The little girl said that everything was fine. It just suddenly became a little cold. "If you're cold, take his jacket," Ryan said, and suggested going to the marquee. Aika thanked him. It was strange. Her head was spinning. She felt goosebumps, just like when she first saw the future, although the weather today is warm. "This is Valiart's granddaughter and a boy from the Kelpodia family," said the man watching them. It looks like Valiart is already in full swing ingratiating himself," said the Duke of the Deslin family, Bagir de Deslin. He smirked, calling him a sly fellow, and told Achilles that it was time for them to return, and his adjutant agreed. On the way home, Aika was whining. Castle asked what was wrong. "She already misses the fair-haired nut. Didn't they agree to play another time?" The girl admitted that she wanted to have more fun, and then looked at the flowers that Ryan gave her as a farewell. They agreed to meet in 10 days when she came to the Imperial Palace again. Honestly, the boy asked her, and Aika promised that she would arrive exactly in that time, and then reached into her pockets. She poured some candies into his palms and said that they were for him. She chose his favorite ones. "Darling," Ryan repeated sheepishly. After this, the girl said goodbye to the boy, when suddenly he said that he also had something for her. And handing her 3 daffodils, he said that they reminded her of Aika. Having accepted the gift, the girl happily thanked Ryan and said that she would take care of them. If only she hadn't frozen, they would have been able to play longer, Aika thought sadly. But why did it suddenly become so cold? Aika only hoped that Ryan would get home safely. And on the way home, Ryan was also not bad, not taking his eyes off the candies that Aika had given him for a second. The Kelpodia family's valet, Tamane, asked the young master if he should put them in the bag. "No," the boy answered decisively. "He will carry it himself." Tamane laughed and said that he understood him but thought how strange it was, because the young master did not like sweets. The next day, Aika came to her uncle again early in the morning when he was changing his clothes. After a pause, the man asked why she always showed up at such moments without even changing her clothes. Aika immediately apologized to her uncle and said that she urgently needed to ask. She thought before going to bed about the friendship between His Majesty, her mother, and her uncle, and besides, he was very kind to her. "And their hair color is the same, so what?" asked Cassell alertly, asking her to get down to business. She snorted at the fact that adults were so impatient and said sheepishly that that was why she wanted to ask. Whether His Majesty was married, then Cassell understood where everything was heading. "Or maybe he has a child," the girl asked modestly. "What unexpected questions?" Cassell asked tensely. Whether the Emperor was married or not, what difference did it make to her? The little girl asked anxiously if she could ask. "Well, tell me, did his niece beg him, wife or not?" The uncle paused and replied that he was not married, asking if she was happy. He replied, "So let him not interfere and leave. Why is he not married?" asked Aika. "Is it difficult to name the reason?" "Does he really have that one? Like in the fairy tales," the girl asked excitedly. Cassel dismissed her dreams and replied that he didn't know, but it was possible. "Then who is his beloved?" Aika kept trying to find out. "Or maybe this," she guessed. But then Cassel slammed the door in front of Aika and threw her out of his room, not intending to answer anymore. The girl puffed out her cheeks. Even though her uncle was friends with His Majesty, he didn't tell him anything about him. How rude. He'll leave him alone only today. A couple of days later, at the Legier estate, Cassel thought that the nut had been acting strange lately. Previously, she was always Belokurica, but now she was as quiet as a mouse. Seeing Uncle Ike, she asked where he was going. "It's none of your business," he replied, and told her not to try to follow him. "Eh?" Aika sighed, but agreed. Cassel suspected the girl. She didn't even beg him to take her with him. And this is, of course, pleasant, but somehow too strange. Very suspicious. Cassel said that he went and told her not to cause trouble and to look after the house. Aika wished him a good trip. The man kept wondering why she wasn't insisting today, why she was planning something. Her exemplary behavior was making him nervous in its own way. It was the first big ball since the death of his sister, and the old man finally made up his mind. But why was he there? The gentleman was greeted and asked if they were leaving now, but first Cassel asked him to give him a report. And so they set out on their journey. Cassel thought that maybe it was worth checking the nut again. Although he thought that she was already fast asleep, he suddenly became interested in the chest standing in front of him. And without thinking twice, he ordered Aika to get out. When there was no reaction, he irritably repeated that she should get out. And the next moment, Aika's head popped out of the chest, breathing in the fresh air. The girl laughingly asked her uncle how he understood it. Cassel cold-bloodedly ordered her to just go out first. He asked when she got there, Aika answered while he was talking to James. She never tells what happens at balls, but she is interested. And she just jumped up, Cassel asked angrily and sat down in thought, mentally cursing her. Surrendering to the child, he sighed and said that she could do as she knew. Aika enthusiastically asked if she could go with him. She happily hugged Cassel and said that he was the nicest and coolest, the best in Wofford in the whole world. The man chuckled and told Aika not to flatter and to sit up straight so he could style her hair. Aika asked if it was Grandpa's party. She was excited. Finally, she would be able to see Grandpa, and there would be a lot of goodies. When they arrived, Aika exclaimed excitedly about how everything here sparkled, just like the stars. "This is Grandfather's estate," asked Aika. "Very, very beautiful, that's true," confirmed Cassel and asked the girl not to go far. Mom used to dress up nicely and go out in the evenings if she had known that she was preening. She would have tagged along with her for such a ball. Out of interest, she asked her uncle whether her grandfather had arrived first, but Cassel could not know this. "He is his father, he couldn't not know," said Aika, to which the man only grinned. But suddenly, walking further into the hall, Aika realized that everyone was staring at them. "My God," the lady asked, "is this by any chance the Marquis of Legier? They were hoping he would come, a treat for the eyes." They thought about saying hello to him later, but suddenly they noticed a child next to him, and there was talk about who she was to him. What's going on? She's never seen these people in her life, but they know her? Suddenly, Aika felt ill. A cold wind blew from somewhere, and her heart began to beat wildly. A man came out saying that he was wondering what all the noise was about, but it was the one who rarely comes to balls who had shown up. Cassel asked if there was a reason not to show up for a family celebration. "Of course not," the man answered, laughing. The man meant that he was glad to see him in good health after so many hardships. He even arranged such a ball. "Who is this?" Aika thought anxiously. Squeezing her uncle's hand, it seemed she had already seen the symbol on his cane. And suddenly she remembered how her mother told her not to approach people whose eyes were like snakes. It may be difficult, but she has to look for these elements. She is smart, so she will recognize them right away. "The Deslin family is a snake," Syria said, pointing to their crest. While the Rondo family, the turtle, remembered and was horrified by Ika, her mother told her to avoid them. "What should I do?" the girl thought anxiously. "I need to leave immediately, run." But suddenly her uncle put his hand on her shoulder. "Uncle," Ika thought hopefully. Marquis Cassel told Marquis Rondeau that his undue anxieties had increased with age. To be precise, this old man's name was Jerome de Rondeau. "This turtle crest is definitely the Rondeau family symbol. Mom told me to stay away from the turtle because it is close to the snake Deslin." But why was it so cold? And the voice of this old man was very familiar. Cassel noticed that his niece's condition was unstable, and so he told the Marquis that they would go, wishing Jerome Rondeau a pleasant banquet. "Why such a rush?" asked the old man, who had with him a child he had not seen before. "Could this really be the Prime Minister's child from the rumors?" he asked, reaching out to the trembling rabbit. But then Cassell grabbed the Marquise's hand and squeezed it hard, pulling it away from the girl. The man said threateningly, one more word and he would be in trouble. He advised Marquis Rondo to leave while he was still kind, and a shiver ran down Jerome's spine. The Marquise recoiled, gasped, and said that he would be careful and had meant nothing of the sort, asking not to misunderstand him. He said he just wanted to say hello, but apparently today was not the right day. Having said goodbye to the ignorant old man, they moved further down the hall, the cold retreating. And the next moment Grandpa greeted Aika, his princess. They immediately reunited, leaving Castle behind, and spent a long time basking, exchanging caring phrases. That's right, Aika suddenly remembered. She wanted to ask her grandfather. The Duke asked what interested her, and she asked if she had accidentally met the Marquis Rondo when she was little, and her grandfather became tense and asked why she suddenly asked about him. It seemed, the girl said, that she had heard his voice somewhere, but she could not remember. Maybe, asked Cassell. She was simply confusing it with the voice of another old man. No, exclaimed Aika. Her grandfather's was deeper and steeper. But Mom told me to be careful with Rondo and Deslin. She couldn't help but worry. Saria said this. Uncle was surprised. Yes, the girl happily confirmed. She studied with her and even remembered the coats of arms of other families. She praised her for drawing them well, so Saria said. Cassell repeated devastatedly. While distracting the girl, the grandfather told Aika that he had a gift for her. He was building an academy for their princess. The academy? Aika asked. The Duke confirmed. When she grows up, they will go there together. He will do everything very beautifully. Castle asked, why send the nut to some rotten old school? At the same time, they will cover up Valyart's weaknesses. He finally turned on his brain. Grandfather chuckled. Valyart's short pedigree was not scary, but thinking about the future, the more ideal, the better, he answered. Grandfather invited Aika to come to the construction site sometime, lay one brick and it will become a wonderful memory. Aika said enthusiastically that it sounded fun and wanted to go. Great, thought Cassell, but he would have to suffer. And then she told her grandfather that she had made a friend, although the Duke asked her if her grandfather knew him. She said that they would meet at the palace in 10 days and then she would introduce them, and she also decided that her uncle would also go. After this, he told the nut to get down, saying that the old man was busy and he needed to meet guests. While having fun at the ball, the girl thought how strange it was that no one had dared to approach her before. But the uncle was really popular. The ladies never stopped greeting him. But for some reason he didn't answer any of them. Aika wanted to do it instead of him. It was suspiciously noisy here, so she decided to check, but that meant the Marquis was really here, the lady said. He rarely pleased them with his presence and asked if he was thinking of leaving, asked Countess Lamond, Ella. Cassell asked the girl what she wanted, and Ella whispered that she had useful information for him. They started discussing something, and Aika wondered who this lovely lady was. Aiki's lens has been activated. Could it really have been my uncle's girl? Uncle told the nut to be quiet and not leave James. He would be back soon. Aika said enthusiastically that she understood him. She couldn't interfere with his love, which meant that her uncle also had someone he loved. She invited James to come with her, and he happily agreed with Miss. She whispered to the bodyguard if she was her uncle's girlfriend, saying that she was very beautiful. What are you saying? James answered awkwardly. It's not like that. They just have common goals and they are going down the same path. That's not the type of relationship. Aika was convinced that this was not so, and she felt awkward, but suddenly she saw a beautiful fountain. Jerome said that she might get wet and catch a cold if she sat with him, so he suggested that they sit at the nearest table. From there you could see the water falling straight down, Aika exclaimed, and the man agreed. It would be great if Uncle saw it too. He's probably very busy. James said he'll be back soon. If she's bored, they can head to the carriage. Aika refused. She wanted to go together when he returned. Then the man said that he would go and check. When James left, a girl appeared on the horizon who found the little hooligan, a child who suddenly appeared in the Valyart house and now won't leave the Marquis's side. James was late and it was getting boring. Aika was already thinking about looking for him, but she was told to sit here until he returned. An illegitimate child, that's true. The Chancellor wasn't married. They probably hid it all this time, ashamed of their illegitimate daughter. It seemed the Marquis had taken her into his care. People said, I wonder if he was going to get married. An unmarried man appears in society with a child. It's rather strange, don't you think? The girl asked. However, since it was the Marquis of Legier, she thought that such a shortcoming could be ignored. Chancellor Legier, thought Aika, what are they saying about her? Mom hid what they were talking about. Mom always said that she was proud of her. The man asked mockingly, but he wasn't planning to make her his heir, in which case he would have already announced it. An illegitimate offspring, raised somewhere on the side, the lady answered laughing. That cannot be. Just think that the Chancellor of the Empire made such a mistake. Unable to bear it, Aika came down from her seat. Still, it seemed that the Marquise did not like the girl, and he asked Miss Rosalind if she was glad about it. "What is he thinking about?" she asked, laughing. But Aika, who approached them, coldly stated that her mother had never hidden her. Caught red-handed, the aristocrats wavered, and Aika indignantly called them deceivers. "Cheaters?" Miss Rosalind asked, stunned. Aika confidently answered her that her mother had always been proud of her, and told adults not to dare talk about things they didn't know. "Little brat!" the girl shouted indignantly. "Who is she to lecture her?" "She is a disgrace. Because of her, the Marquis and Lord Valliard are forced to listen to such things," she screamed. "How dare such scum raise his voice at her?" she shouted, grabbing a glass of wine. "Know your place." Aika was already expecting to be doused, but even a moment later this did not happen. Cassel sighed heavily and said that he saw everything. Realizing what she had done, Miss Rosaline trembled with horror and fear. And she exclaimed in surprise, "He is the Marquis of Legier." James rushed up to Miss and asked if she was okay, asking her to follow him. Cassel ordered the bodyguard to take the child away. Rosalind was worried at the time, wondering from what point on he couldn't hear everything. Just not that, what will happen then, once the Marquis even accepted a glass of champagne from her? Cassel ordered the girl to continue wagging her tongue, and she asked in horror, "Sorry." The man repeated again and again, ordering her to continue, and asked why she was silent, as if she had swallowed her tongue. Rosalind and her companion were very worried, and the girl asked how he could speak so rudely, and he asked Rosalina Green if she thought it was okay to gape at his child. He advised her and Tommy Domino to start managing their finances wisely, to save at least one dress before they were left penniless. Tommy asked indignantly what the hell he was talking about, and Rosaline anxiously tried to stop the Marquis, but she couldn't get him to stop. Having finished with them, Castle went out into the yard. It was cool outside, and he asked the shorty why she went out. The Marquis reminded that he asked to keep an eye on her. James was ready to accept the punishment, but Aika demanded not to scold James. More importantly, she thought her mother had said that people who insulted others without reason lived in their own hell. "That's why they think they have to hurt others," Aika quoted her as saying. So she offered to forgive them, at least this time, the words hitting where it hurt most. They were better than them, Aika finished, and memories of his sister flashed through Castle's head. Happy days spent together, and Syria's words that she offered to forgive them at least once, because they are better than them. Castle was too touched by this, and he acknowledged Aika's victory. The little girl asked if he loved her more now. A few days later, they set off, and Aika giggled and thanked her uncle for going with her. "So glad?" he asked. "Yeah," Aika answered. Because they were going to buy a present for Ryan, it was sad that they didn't have time to play much last time. She was glad that they would meet tomorrow, and excitedly told me that she and her mother always went to the flower shop. The little girl confessed to her uncle that she had never been to a market before, and asked if they could see some more places. "Don't even dream about it," Castle answered her, saying that they would buy flowers and leave. Aika was touched because she really wanted to go to the fair. The girl heard that they sold a lot of goodies there, and she would be interested. Castle gave in and promised to take her next time. Upon arriving, the Marquise told her not to run, otherwise she would fall and get hurt, and Aika rushed for flowers, agreeing with her uncle. Aika ran into a familiar store, and the owner of the establishment immediately recognized the girl. "Miss Aika," she exclaimed, almost crying. The girl greeted Mary and asked if everything was okay with her. But then Mary couldn't resist and, in a fit of emotion, hugged the baby. The crying girl said she was glad she was okay. She assumed that she was very scared and sad. Aika became emotional. Siri said that if she had known that this would happen, she would not have let Siri in that day. "Aika," asked her mother in surprise. She was talking about her mother. Castle approached and frowned. And then the little girl asked, hopefully, if she knew anything about the accident. Actually, the day before the incident, the girl began to tell her story while wiping away tears. Lady Saria came in to buy flowers. She still clearly remembered how she smiled when she looked at them. But in any case, she was glad because she missed Miss Ike so much and thanked her for coming to visit her. "Sister Mary," Aika said, almost crying. But then the girl gathered her courage and asked Aika to follow her, asking for whom they were collecting the bouquet. She said she wanted to give them to her new friend and grandfather, and also to her uncle, James and Linda. Castle told Oreshko that he didn't need any flowers, which Aika asked in shock and said that her uncle would change his mind as soon as he saw them. "That's true," Mary answered with a laugh. "They have the best flowers in the area. She will choose the freshest and most beautiful. That's why she asked to accept them." Soon, the girl collected all the bouquets for the little girl and put a flower behind her ear. She said that it was a gift for Miss and asked her to visit them again. Aika thanked her. Castle said that he would go first and asked the nut to hurry up and go out too. Aika asked her uncle to wait for her. She asked Sister Mary if she could take this too. The girl said that it might be a bit heavy. Aika said that everything was fine and went out to her uncle. Then he asked why she was carrying a sunflower the size of her, and the girl laughed and said that she had chosen it carefully. And she asked her uncle if it really suited her. It was a gift to make his work easier, looking at something beautiful. To the persons, he grinned and asked, dragged a giant as tall as himself, and now, where should he put something so huge? Besides, she bought it with his money. Damn, she puffed out Ike's cheeks. The uncle is so mean sometimes. She snorted and told him to do whatever he wanted. Castle asked, finished sulking. They can go anyway, she snorted. They were already approaching the house when suddenly their carriage stopped, and the passengers immediately looked back. Cassell got out of the carriage to ask James what had happened, and he said that the young lady and gentleman they had met earlier had come to see each other. They refused to leave the main gate until they properly apologized to him and the young lady. It seems that they sincerely asked for forgiveness and asked what should be done, the Marquise thought. He asked the nut if she wanted to go with him, and if she didn't want to see them, she could stay here. Aika thought for a moment, and then replied that everything was fine and she would go. Rosalind tried to somehow drag out words of apology to the Marquis, but suddenly noticed Miss next to him. They immediately fell to their knees before her. Tommy screamed how sorry they were and promised that she would never hear such thoughtless words again. Rosalind agreed with him and asked Miss to show mercy, saying that they would not do it again. She also reported that as a sign of repentance, they had prepared modest gifts. Their carriages were filled to the brim with them, so they hoped that she would accept the gifts and feel better. Castle frowned and asked Oreshka what she thought about this. If she doesn't like it, she doesn't have to accept it, the uncle said. And then the girl said that she didn't need gifts. Apologizing takes courage. They were brave enough to come forward and admit their guilt, so she forgave them. But only on the condition that this would not happen again. The nobles thanked the miss, saying that they would never forget her kindness. In the end, she simply forgave them and told Aika's friend about what happened the next day. Ryan assumed that this had upset her greatly, but the girl assured him that everything was fine now. Ryan told Ike that she and her mom were great, honestly. Ike asked, "Is Mommy the best in the world?" Ryan thanked Aika for the flowers and happily said that he would cherish them. "Okay," the little girl replied, laughing, and admitted that she chose one similar to Ryan's. He said that he also had a gift for Aika, the girl asked with interest. The boy asked if she would accept him. The little girl was very surprised and asked if she could open it now. "Yes, of course," the boy answered her, and Aika opened the box and saw cute bunny-shaped slippers in them. Hugging them, the girl happily thanked Ryan and said that she would wear them at home every day. Ryan was glad that she liked it, and then Aika asked what they would play, hide and seek, or would it be better to draw? The boy replied that he wouldn't mind trying anything she liked, and that any activity was more fun together. "Here he is," a cold voice suddenly rang out, killing time, playing the fool. "Is this how someone born to high rank should behave?" The voice echoed in Ryan's head. The man told him time and time again not to waste time on frivolities, but it seemed he taught him poorly. Ryan jumped up from his seat and apologized, modestly saying that today was just a day off. A day off, the Duke asked him. Was it really an excuse for one who was going to be crowned prince to indulge in idle fun? "What's going on?" Aika thought indignantly. What kind of old man is this, and why would Ryan apologize? Why is he offending Ryan? Aika thought, angry and already exploding. He thought Ryan was a smart boy, but it turned out he still needed supervision. He also had a day off. This meant he would have to take up education. He ordered Ryan to come to him, but suddenly Aika blocked her friend with her body. The man chuckled with displeasure and asked the child what she was doing. The little girl indignantly screamed at her grandfather not to hurt Ryan, which the man asked, grimacing. Aika knew who this old man was. Green hair, blue eyes, and a shield emblem underneath a vine. All this pointed to a man close to the Valyart family and His Majesty the Emperor, Duke Nodium. Mom said he has a lot of admirable qualities, but then why does he bully Ryan? The Duke asked the little girl who she was, and the girl exclaimed, Aika de Valyart. Valyart raised an eyebrow and asked the Duke and grinned, asking, now it's not even a secret. Having called her an impudent girl, he gave his name, Gale Nodium. Aika was surprised. In the book it was completely different. But suddenly she realized, remembering the page with the family tree, it was not the Duke, but his son. She knew that something was wrong here. The man asked the child with displeasure if her grandfather hadn't taught her to respect adults. He taught, the girl answered him, but he also said that adults who bully little children are bad, and he does the same to Ryan. She shouted in response to his answer that he was only 7 years old, like her, and her mother said that at their age they need to explore the world and not just study. When she threatened to ask the Emperor about it, Gale slowed down and said, typical Valyart, a character like his grandfather. But Aika insisted that he stop offending her friend and called the Marquis a bad grandfather. Gale asked the girl to listen and said that he was not offending anyone. Aika told him to leave, and Ryan, listening to all this, thought. But suddenly he stretched out his arms and hugged Aika tightly, calming her temper. The boy sheepishly thanked Aika and said that everything was fine. Having let her go, he stepped forward and turned to the young count. Gale stuttered and asked what was wrong. Ryan explained that he had taken the day off and never missed classes or fencing, and never done anything disrespectful. He asked the man to believe in him, promising that he would not disappoint. Since that was the case, Gale gave in and said, hell, if the Emperor got married, there wouldn't be such problems. Either way, he must not waste precious time, he told Ryan, adding that this also applied to young Valyard. Aika was puffed up. Mom only said good things about the Nodium family, but she was disappointed. Ryan laughingly asked not to hate him too much. He was just worried about him, so Aika decided to dislike him just a little bit and took her friend by the hand. She asked if they could play again today. There was a place she really wanted to go with him. The boy asked in surprise, where does she want to go? James said that as they knew, books needed to be handled with care and said that he would put the key to the archive in her handbag. Well said. Aika thanked James, then dragged her friend along to study the Imperial Archive. The children were amazed by the presence of books. Ryan agreed with his friend, because it was his first time there too. Suddenly, Aika came across the section with fairy tales and suggested that the boy go there. Ryan was only glad. The girl noticed that Ryan looked a little sad and wondered if it was because he had been scolded. She was thinking about how she could cheer him up when she suddenly came across a completely empty shelf. It is possible that she will be able to get in there, and that is why Aika has come up with a wonderful idea. She decided to hide there unnoticed and then jump out to surprise Ryan, which would definitely make him laugh. The shelf looked cramped, but in fact it was quite spacious. You could hide here during hide and seek. Suddenly the girl discovered that there was also a hole on the other side of the shelf and decided to try to get out. At this point, Ryan finished his business and turned to Ike, thinking that they had already reviewed everything from this side. Finding that Aika was gone, he immediately ran for help, and together with James, they ran to the Marquis and the valet. Light Nut. Cassell turned to him in surprise and asked the frightened James what had happened. Sir, he said in a trembling voice. Speaking of Miss Nut, Cassell asked again, did she go home or what? Miss Aika was missing, James concluded, the words hitting the man, and he asked in horror, what? Ryan reported that she disappeared while looking for the book. They looked through the entire archive but couldn't find it. He apologized, he was very sorry. But then Cassell calmed the fair-haired nut, saying that it was not his fault. He asked him not to tremble and follow him. Yes, Ryan answered, ready to cry. Then he ordered James to call the soldiers and bring them to the archives, and he himself ran to look for his niece. Where could she connect, he thought anxiously, and prayed that the nut would remain unharmed. The knight was thrown with all his might into the wall. His comrade shouted and asked the Marquis to calm down. They had already involved every soldier in the castle in searching for the young miss. But Cassell, with an enraged look, calmly ordered them to get off the road. Still, this is not right, the guard shouted to him anxiously. To break into the palace in this way, it could be considered treason. Get out. Keeping his composure, the Marquis told him, but the man, admonishing him, shouted that he was forbidden. The Emperor approached and asked Cassell to be quieter. He swore by his title that Aika would be found, so he asked him to wait a little longer. Hey! Without letting him finish, Cassell interrupted him and angrily asked his old friend if he thought he wouldn't be able to finish him off. If he hadn't given me that damn key, nothing would have happened. Winchester admitted that he had acted thoughtlessly, but insisted that Aika would not be harmed. He asked to trust him and just wait a little. Just a little, Cassell broke down. The key he handed over was the reason for her disappearance, and at the same time he asks to wait and believe. He asked, shouting. First he lost his sister, and now he must stand aside. Knowing about the disappearance of his niece, the Marquis made excuses in despair. The knights asked the Marquis what he was doing, and Winchester calmly said that since he could not rely on him, he should trust Saria. The key to the archives was left by his sister for Aika, and she would never pass on something dangerous to her daughter. Winchester, saddened by warm memories, admitted that he could not refuse her request. Cassell himself knew this. The man slowed down, exhaled, calmed down, and, letting go of the Emperor, said, I'm free for now. But suddenly the gentleman was called out and told that she had been found. The first thing Ryan did was rush to the girl and hug her tightly, very worried. Luckily everything was fine, and he asked if she was hurt. No, the girl answered awkwardly. She was fine and apologized for worrying him. But then the irritated Marquis Legier approached the children and called out to the nut. Aika became alarmed when she saw his face. Cassell asked where she had been, and she explained that she wanted to surprise Ryan. But the next moment, Cassell hugged his niece tightly, making sure that she was okay. "Uncle?" the girl asked in surprise. Cassell said that she had scared everyone and asked worriedly if she had gotten hurt. "Aika was fine, wonderful," answered Cassell. "The rest is unimportant. However, from this day on, she is forbidden to be in the Emperor's palace." "What?" the little girl cried out discontentedly and tried to find out why she couldn't go back. "Because she continues to be a nuisance," her uncle answered. But then Ryan called out to the Marquis and asked him to wait a second. The boy asked him to take Aika with him next time, promising that she would not disappear again. The Marquis said that he said she was not allowed into the palace and asked what she was talking about. If she wanted to play, she could come to their house. Clenching his fist, Ryan said that he promised that this would not happen again and that he would provide protection. Cassell wavered. What happened? He thought in surprise. He dreamed this energy, but he was sure that it came from the boy. After a pause, the man said that he would think about it, but he should go back. Aika promised Ryan that she would be a good girl and would definitely come. They would see each other. The boy wished them a quick meeting and asked his friend to be careful. Phew, thought Aika. She shouldn't have lied, but she couldn't tell everything. No one would believe her. A couple of hours ago, Aika crawled out from under the box and found herself in a room where she met a rabbit. "Who are you?" asked her little creature. "Ha!" the little one screamed in fear and asked, just said. "There is no one else to speak here," the rabbit answered and bowed before Aika. And then he asked if she knew Syria. The girl trembled. The girl asked if the long-eared one knew his mother, Mom. The rabbit asked in surprise. But he quickly guessed that she was Seria's daughter and enthusiastically said that he was glad to meet her and introduced himself as Lepus, her friend. Aika didn't know that her mother had a ghostly rabbit friend, which made Lepus outraged and said that he was not a ghost. Looking at his watch, he said that it was already late and asked Seria's daughter what her name was. The little girl said that her name was Aika. "Wonderful, Aika," said Lepus. "He will be back soon," and asked her to wait a little and disappeared into the space of the room. "How cool!" the girl exclaimed, realizing that it was possible to pass through, but for some reason she couldn't do it herself. Suddenly, Lepus unexpectedly stuck his paw out of the wall with some kind of sign, frightening Aika. Lepus asked Aika to take it, saying that Syria left it. "What is it?" Aika asked in surprise, and Lepus answered that it was him. "You!" Aika exclaimed in amazement, looking at the inscriptions on the stone slab. "True," Lepus answered. "He is sealed in this slab. Syria, being a seeker, awakened him." "What?" the girl asked. "The seeker," Lepus repeated, "or the researcher," and asked if she had spoken. "No," the girl admitted sadly. "Her mother recently passed away." "That's it. That's why she didn't tell him. Syria warned that one day someone important to her would come here. It seemed to be her, but Lepus didn't expect her to be so small. She asked to tell her everything and protect her from the predator when the day came, the rabbit ordered. "Predator?" the girl asked, and Lepus asked her to look here. The next moment, the pages of the books flew past Aika, surprising her with magic. He said that predators, or hunters, are people who are very dangerous. Originally, there was a god who maintained the balance of the world. When he disappeared, he left behind an incredible being called the Absolute. To act in his name, the god preserved 10 relics imbued with divine power called the Hierotheca. But how could the Absolute being cope with something that surpassed God? So the Absolute entrusted the relics to the researchers, former messengers of the Lord. They worked together to maintain peace, but the peace did not last long, and the envious became predators. Aika inherited the explorer's power, and the girl asked anxiously if this meant that she would be hunted too. To think that she would be hunted, but how was he going to protect her? Lepus said that after the Seeker awakens the sleeping relic, it can grant him special abilities. Besides him, Syria awakened many and acquired their powers. She had the ability to bind people's legs. And she could also take shelter from the rain. Aika was very amazed that her mother had such strength. She said that she received the gift of seeing the future when she ate a precious stone that her mother gave her. It's an ability. Lepus asked anxiously what she had eaten, but suddenly realized something and fell silent. The series must have sucked the energy out of him, he said sadly. It didn't matter. What is important is that she needs to develop her abilities and collect relics to counter the hunters, because she can sense the aura of the relics. Predators are not endowed with the same, but they are able to recognize the seeker. They harm them and take away their skills, all out of greed. To get rid of them, the seeker must learn to use abilities correctly and hide the aura. He had met Serpens before, but she hadn't been able to wake him up properly, right? Asked the rabbit. Serpens asked Ike if that was true, he replied, and asked if she hadn't seen a snake with a red eye. A snake, she thought, and suddenly remembered that she had already met it. Although it was a dream, she corrected. Lepus didn't know why she thought it was, but in any case, she needed to wake him up quickly if she wanted to survive. The girl asked what she needed to do, and the bunny explained that she had to call him by name. Call right now. Aika became alarmed, remembering that snake was scary. Lepus said that there was no time. There was something scary behind the door. It was better to go back. He asked the girl to hurry up before she was scolded even more. They scolded him. What was he talking about? The little girl asked him, perplexed. Die and you will find out, he said, pushing her towards the exit. As a result, as he said, she was scolded. A few days later, at the Leger estate, Aika sighed and thought about what to do. It couldn't be put off any longer. If she calls by name, the snake from the dream will appear. And she inspired great fear in the little girl, but she still decided to do it. But as soon as she called the snake by name, Cassel entered the room and asked the nut what she was doing. Aika almost jumped out of bed in surprise. He asked why she was surprised, and the little girl answered because he came in too suddenly and asked what was wrong. Nothing important, he replied. He would be stopping by the Imperial Palace for a short while, so she should dine alone and he would check with Sophie. Hearing the words about the Imperial Palace, Aika immediately began to ask to go with him, but Cassel refused. Why? Aika said and exclaimed. He said that he would think about it. That's right, he said he would think about it, the uncle repeated. But he had no intention of taking her, so he told her to forget, and the little girl began to whine in despair. She realized that at this rate her uncle would never take her, and she wanted to see the Emperor and Lepus too. And so she did not give up trying, and received just as many refusals. Didn't Cassel see what danger she was in last time? Winchester understood his feelings, but he wanted to fulfill Seria's last wish. Aika could freely come and go, at least to the archive. Cassel thought for a moment, and asked if he was saying this because he had some kind of plan. Of course, the Emperor answered, and holding out the magic circle, asked Cassel to look at it. He asked what he thought about him, in which case all exits and entrances for Aika were free and safe. The Marquise asked if it was okay to install something like this in the Imperial Palace. If the nobles found out, there would be an uproar, because they would want justice. Winchester said they would keep it a secret. He missed her, and Ryan was sad too, so they would visit the palace officially. They will gradually begin preparing and then contact him when they are finished, all for the sake of Seria and Aika. Aika heard her uncle leave and decided that she needed to try again. That's why she called Serpens again. However, there was no reaction and Aika felt deceived. But without giving up, she continued to call Serpens, not understanding why he did not appear. Suddenly, the rain seemed to be drumming on her shoulders. Aika seemed to be transported to a completely different space, where there was no air. What was going on, she thought anxiously, because a second ago she was in the room and now she couldn't breathe. She was underwater. Maybe it was because she called him. But why did he do that? She mentally ordered Serpens to answer her now and suddenly found herself back in the room. And Serpens, in the form of a cute snake, appeared before her and asked if she had called him. Such a tiny thing, Aika still couldn't compare that huge snake and this little snake, not believing that he was Serpens. But it was so. The snake asked to be allowed to introduce himself and said, holding out his hand, that his name was Serpens. His eyes were the same color as the pebble she swallowed, but she didn't think he would be so cute. The snake asked why she was staring so intently, and suddenly the girl introduced herself as Aika de Valiart. She asked if it was true that he could see the future. Lepus told her. He asked. Aika confirmed and told him about the uniqueness of the relics. And since she got this skill after eating a stone that looks like his eye, she decided there was a connection. True, she is smart, said the snake, and the stronger she is, the more accurate and clear the future of the chosen person will become. It will take a lot of effort, but there is no need to worry. Since he was called, he will help. Aika wanted to tell Lepus about the meeting, but she couldn't get into the archive. She complained to him. Soon her uncle returned. He definitely wouldn't agree, but she would still try to talk him into it and promise that she would return. However, no matter how much Aika tried, Cassel's answer was still the same. He had already said that she would not go to the palace. He indignantly asked what kind of mess she was trying to drag him into this time. Aika snorted. Worst uncle, the knights were talking behind their backs, don't offend the miss, but Cassel told James that he heard everything. No, Aika answered. Nothing like that. She just wanted to write a letter to Ryan and invite him home. The man thought for a moment and said that if she was simply inviting him to visit, then so be it. Aika was glad. But from next week, he is hiring a tutor. It is time for her to come to her senses. Studying is necessary at her age, and he told her to behave with dignity. Aika had one more request. She wanted to visit the house where she lived with her mother and asked if he could take her there. There was probably something she left behind, like Lepus or Serpens. Getting into the archive is an important task, but this place is also worth checking. Castle thought about it and said that later, when everything calmed down a bit, he would take her. Aika could not believe that he agreed. When will he go? Aika asked. Her uncle told her not to think about imposing strange conditions and asked if he at least knew how much one of his trips cost. Okay, said the girl. She could also offer something. If he listened to her, she would kiss him on the cheek. What Castle said in shock. He asked what this had to do with it, and Aika explained that her mother said that her kiss was worth $1 million. So if she uses one on Uncle, it will work very well. Well, and Saria, he remembered his sister with a grin. And after thinking for a while, he agreed that if she gave him a couple, he would think, Aika was surprised, that then there would be $2 million. What a stingy man, what a greedy man, Cassell asked irritably if she was saying that her uncle was worth less. The girl gasped and thought for a moment, and then said that there was nothing she could do and asked her uncle to bend over a little. As soon as he leaned over, Aika kissed him on the cheek. And then again and again. Castle asked rather what and why 3. Aika proudly declared that it was a gift. Uncle asked suspiciously if she was trying to appease him because she had done something wrong somewhere again. No, she replied. And then she said that she would go write a letter to Ryan, of course, said her uncle, and asked her not to run far and not to forget to take a nap. Aika wrote to Ryan and asked how he was doing. She wanted to have more fun together, but they always had little time. So she invited him to her place to make a delicious cake, have fun, explore the garden, and play happily together. They will have a great time when they are with each other and waited for an answer. Soon Ryan received an envelope. After reading it, he smiled. But suddenly, a voice from behind coldly asked if this letter was from young Miss Valliart, whom he had seen earlier. The boy gasped in surprise, not expecting to see his father. The Duke asked what it was about, and Ryan reluctantly said that she had invited him to her estate. The Chancellor's illegitimate child appeared out of nowhere, which raised suspicions. The Duke told the boy not to go there, which horrified him. His father also told him not to ask the reason and just not to go without need. Now that's it, he said he was going. But then the boy called out to his father in alarm and said embarrassedly that it was necessary. What? He asked in surprise. Since House Valliart was loyal to His Majesty, Ryan believed this was a great chance to strengthen the ties between the families. Besides, he was in debt to Miss. To which his father irritably asked if he had forgotten his place just because he had gotten involved with Valliart. He asked him to remember that he would become the crown prince. Contrary to rumors, Marquis Legier had much to teach. He was not going to neglect his studies or training and asked for permission. Although he frowned, the Duke thought that he had never argued before. So he told him to do as he knew, but in such a way as not to tarnish the name of Kelpodius. Ryan happily thanked his father. It was the first time he contradicted him, and it was very scary. But he will see Aika again. The more they meet, the more he changes. But it's not that he didn't like it, he wanted to go to her as soon as possible. Or rather, that's what he thought. If only he had known the danger she would be in, it would have been better not to come at all. When the day of the meeting finally arrived, Ryan arrived at the party in full dress and thanked them for the invitation. He also prepared a gift for her. Aika was pleasantly surprised by this and thanked Ryan. She noticed his hairstyle, and the boy awkwardly asked, "Strange?" "Yes." No, the little girl answered hastily and said that it suited him very well. Ryan happily thanked Aika. The next moment, she dragged him along, asking if he had ever tried making a cake. "A cake?" the boy asked. "Exactly," she answered enthusiastically. "They'll bake it, go on a picnic with a dessert they'll make themselves." Soon the children arrived in the kitchen and changed their clothes. Then Sophia laughingly suggested that they start making the cake. Ryan was doing very well, and noticing this, Aika told her friend that he had tried very hard. Ryan sheepishly said that it wasn't, and anyone could have done the same. But then he noticed Aika's sloppy cake. And he told his friend that her cake was more original and perhaps even better. Aika really liked the compliment. Aika told Ryan that he had cream on his face, and he let out an embarrassed yelp, asking where it was. Aika said that she would wipe it herself and laughed when she finished. Ryan was very embarrassed and blushed. Aika called out to Ryan nervously and hesitantly. Suddenly, Sophia interrupted them, asking the miss and the young gentleman if it was time to finish. As she suddenly noticed that they weren't done yet, "Not yet," Ryan replied sheepishly. He had cream on his face and Aika removed it. Sophia said that it happens, and she brought some flavored fudge and asked if they had forgotten that they were going on a picnic after cooking. Finally getting ready for the picnic, Aika tried the prepared dessert. "Delicious," she exclaimed, and asked if Ryan agreed, and the fry agreed that it was indeed delicious. Linda laughed and asked if it was even better when you made it yourself, wasn't it? The girl said that she would go get drinks and asked them to have fun together. Aika asked Linda to come back quickly. Suddenly, Aika remembered something and asked Ryan if she should show him something cute. "What?" he asked. "Ta-da," the little girl announced and asked her friend, "Isn't it cute? It was a bag that her mother made." There were a lot of important things here. There were even some candies, and I shared them with a friend. He thanked me. There was a lake nearby, and Aika suggested playing near it. Ryan agreed, but asked her not to approach too quickly. He didn't have time to finish speaking when suddenly Koron snatched the bag from Aika's hands and flew away with it. The girl ran anxiously after the bird. It couldn't be lost, because inside was a contract with her uncle. Ryan called out to Aika in alarm and asked her to stand still and not run away. He had already rushed after her, but tripped over a stone and fell flat on his face. Hitting his nose, he gasped and called out to Aika. Aika sighed with relief. It was good that the bird dropped it, but why, of all places, on a branch and in the water? It seemed that she could reach it with her hand, but the bag turned out to be a little further than she expected. She practically reached out to him, but suddenly she stumbled and fell into the water, where she couldn't breathe. A nightmare. As she lost consciousness, she remembered her mother, uncle, and Ryan. At the same time, the boy was doing something over the lake. And the next moment, it was as if she emerged from the water, because she was able to breathe again. It turned out that Ryan had pulled her out of the water with magic, but he looked angry. He was concerned about his friend's condition and carefully lowered her from the air to the ground. The boy told Ike that everything was fine, and the little girl touchingly asked Ryan if he had saved her. Ryan had a headache, and the little girl ran to him anxiously, asking if he was okay. Whether it hurt somewhere and whether it was because of the help, Ryan gasped and said that everything was fine. It was just a little dizzy. And yes, it was he who pulled Ika out of there, really? The girl asked gratefully. She animatedly asked her friend how he did it. He was so cool, it was amazing, it lit up all around, and whoosh. The boy said it was magic and asked his friend to keep it a secret. Amani said that there are few people in the world who possess magic. So Ryan was one of them, Ika thought. Ryan thought so. And then he handed his friend her little bag. The boy said that he stitched it up using magical powers. Ika immediately hugged her friend tightly and thanked him. This bag was really important to her. Ryan sheepishly said that he was important to her, so he couldn't sit idly by. And he said that there might be problems, so he asked her to promise to keep this secret. What problems? The little girl was surprised, but quickly realized everything and said that he didn't have to tell. Everything was fine. She wouldn't tell anyone. Her mother said that sometimes you need to hide things from your loved ones. And she wanted to keep Ryan's secret. The boy thanked Ika, and his friend said that she should thank him and reminded him that they were friends. But then Linda, who had lost sight of them, called out to Miss and the young master, and Ika immediately recognized the maid's voice. And taking the boy by the hand, she called him to go. As they walked towards Linda, Ika asked if Ryan wanted her to confide in him a secret too, and he asked what it was. And Ika told me that her tooth was loose, and the lower one too. Linda knew about the upper one, but she told only him about the second one. He's the only one who knows. Linda said that she'll have to pull it out, but she doesn't want to, so she's hiding it, and it will remain a secret. Ryan agreed. When they arrived, Linda asked what they were chatting about so cheerfully, but Ika laughingly said that it was a secret. The tutor urged Miss Ika and asked if she had found a solution to the problem. Yes, the girl answered. The correct answer was 3 years of imperial power. It was right. Very good, Miss learned quickly. Her history teacher, Clarissa Veneta, praised her. She warned Ika that something had happened to the teacher who was teaching the next lesson in the imperial language and that she would not come. And with that, Clarissa had to take her leave, and she asked the girl not to forget about her homework. Okay, goodbye. Ika answered her and said that she wanted to study with her and asked her to take care of herself. The serpent with a spit told Ika that he had already told her not to use her powers for something like that. The gift was needed to protect herself. She should use it only in case of emergency. Ika apologized for the mistake. All day long she begged her uncle to take her to the palace, but it was all in vain. She doesn't see Ryan because he's busy. So she started special training with serpents. After hard work, she got a little used to the abilities. But she still had a long way to go, and Serpens was a rather strict but capable teacher. Now she had to practice again and again. If she wanted to see the future, she needed to be good at reading the aura. Each person has his own energy, the snake said, and offered to go to a place where there are many servants. And he asked if she could see now, but Ika could not say that she had seen anything. He understood that it was difficult for now, but if they continued their studies, she would be able to. Ika promised to do everything. She strained her eyes to see this aura in people. Suddenly, a rather familiar voice wished Miss Good Day. This man was Repo. He asked the girl what she was doing there, whether she was looking for something to play. Not quite, she answered, and asked where he was going. Repo had finished with the master's errand and was just about to bring him a report. Ika noticed that her name was there. Yes, Repo answered. These are funds allocated for her, and asked if it was difficult to understand. The girl knew this and asked if it was because of her. The uncle said that she was ruining him. That's why there were so many zeros there. Repo laughingly said that the gentleman was just teasing her. She could ask for at least a golden carriage. They were not threatened with bankruptcy. But the girl refused. After all, a golden carriage was too much. Suddenly, she saw a strange red stream of energy around Repo and felt a strange feeling. Repo became alert and asked the miss if she was okay. The girl was shaking as if from the cold. She replied that everything was fine and stopped the man's hand. And then she immediately ran away as if nothing had happened and told the man that they would meet later. Repo remained in ignorance and misunderstanding. As soon as they were alone, Serpens asked the girl if she had seen it. Yes, Aika answered. She noticed a red glow around him and asked, "Is that the aura?" The snake confirmed. But there were no predictions. Then Serpens suggested that Aika try to look at his back. The little girl immediately looked back. The picture was reflected in her eyes. She immediately stopped running and asked in surprise if she had looked into the future. "True," answered the snake, and then Aika, seeking justice, told Serpens that she would need his help. After a while, Castle threw the report aside and asked Repo if he couldn't even do his own job. He was going to the estate tomorrow, so he asked for everything to be ready by today, but Repo was sure that he left the report on the table. The Marquis asked with displeasure. The report grew legs and ran away. The man asked the gentleman for forgiveness, saying that he would prepare a new one by morning. As he left the office, he was squeezed out like a lemon, anticipating a sleepless night. Aika, who had taken the report, asked Serpens if it had worked, at least for today. The snake replied, "Well, in that case, they needed to buy as much time as possible." The next time she came running and called Uncle and Repo. "Yes, miss," I responded to the call of the girl Repo. He asked why she was in such a hurry, what was the important matter, and whether she wanted some candy, of course, if possible, Aika said. Castle said that she eats too many sweets. At this rate, all her teeth will rot. Aika puffed out her cheeks and said that this was not so, but suddenly remembered why she came and asked them to take a look. Castle asked what it was, and Aika explained that they say there are a lot of thieves here. They break into empty houses and steal things. They maim people. Therefore, before entering his home, Repo must make sure that it is empty. Castle asked Oreshka if she was worried about him. Repo was very grateful that Miss was worried about him, but assured her that he was stronger than he looked, so he would be fine. She screamed that this was not a joke, but her uncle was tired of his screams and asked him to stop distracting them and go play with Linda. He also said that from tomorrow she would live with her grandfather, and he would send her teacher there so as not to interrupt her classes. Explaining that he needs to leave for a week, he doesn't take it, so he doesn't even have to try to beg. And after that, they simply threw her out the door, taking her words for childish babble. Aika hoped she had done the right thing, surely, the snake replied. Even if he had not understood the warning, she had received a reprieve. The baby did what she could. All that was left was to hope that Repo was safe. That same night, the butler was returning to his house. The young lady's behavior seemed strange to him. She was constantly circling around the office back and forth, as if she was stalling for time. He was interested because she was small, so full of curiosity. In any case, he was pleased when someone cared about him and decided to be on the alert just in case. And as soon as he opened the door to his home, he saw movement on the second floor. And following the object that had entered his house, he shouted and asked who it was. However, the man jumped out of the window and soon ran away. Repo was stunned as he thought about what had happened. "Just don't tell me," he exclaimed in horror, and rushed to check the house for objects. However, in all the places I found only that all the locks on the doors were broken, which meant that they were looking for something specific. The next morning, the first thing he did was report everything to the Marquis. Repo decided to urgently tell him what had happened. Judging by the tracks, there were 3 of these people, and he had already requested that the pursuit begin. Lucky, because he walked with caution after the warning of the young miss. Indeed, Castle ordered him to take an escort with him for a while. Serves him right, since he refused an escort after his offer, Castle said. Repo laughingly said that he would take it as a sign of concern. Then he took his leave, and Cassell began to discuss what was happening. He reread the article that Aika had prepared and realized that it contained suspicious details. For example, replacing a thief with an attacker, black hair with brown hair, and from a woman to a man. And finally, from 1 person to 3, if we consider it in accordance with the Aiki adjustments. Doesn't that fit perfectly with how the thieves got into Repo's house? Cassell thought. But he quickly dismissed these thoughts, considering them nonsense, no matter how much of a genius his girl was. She can't see the future, can she? He asked himself. The very next day, Aika met her grandfather at the Valliard estate. They were cooing again, Castle noted, and said that he had called all the teachers here, and instead of candy, she would be gnawing on the granite of science. Also, the old teacher of the imperial language was too busy and couldn't come. She would have a new one and asked to keep this in mind. Grandfather asked his princess not to be upset. Grandfather was ready to do anything for Aika and asked what they would play. He also suggested that she go somewhere, and suggested a toy store, and Aika was inspired. She had wanted to get into the Imperial Palace for a long time, but then her uncle crept up on her unnoticed. Aika immediately took her words back. "A golden carriage," she answered nervously, like she wanted to ride in one. "A small one?" Aika asked. She would put a very tiny doll in it, but in fact she did not need any map at all. But suddenly the grandfather noticed that the literature teacher had arrived, who would be working with Aika. The little girl looked out from behind her grandfather to look at this man. The man wished Miss Aika good day. And bowing, with a gloomy look, he announced that he had been assigned to supervise her training in the Imperial language. He was Belfoy Logan. The teacher said she could just call him Logan and asked if she knew any of the Imperial language. "Yes," the girl answered. She could write a little. For her age, it was impressive, so Logan suggested that she write the words she knew. Mom's name is Syria, grandfather's name is Alod, and uncle's name is Cassell. And Aika, swinging her legs, continued to write the names familiar to her, but suddenly she froze in horror from what she realized. She didn't know how to spell Ryan's name and hoped she hadn't made a mistake when she wrote the letter. Logan noticed that the girl had finished the task and offered to look at what she had come up with. He literally snatched the piece of paper from Aika's hand before she finished, but the man ignored her. He read carefully what the girl had written and realized that she could only write the names of her family members. He expected more from the Chancellor's daughter, apparently. Saria herself did not have a talent for teaching, which is why he suddenly started talking about his mother. He said that she would have to make more effort not to disgrace the Duke, and the snake on her shoulder exploded. But suddenly they were interrupted by a knock on the door. Linda arrived and asked Milady if she had enjoyed the lesson. She told Logan that the lesson would have to be finished for today, and he was upset, saying that she was a very capable student. Smiling, he told Miss with some subtext that he would go and asked her to study hard. Also waiting for their next meeting, Aika, already leaving, agreed. Serpens asked Aika if she was going to say anything. "What about?" the girl asked. "About that teacher," the snake answered, and asked if maybe she should tell her grandfather. He dared to reproach Saria. He was very angry. Aika was also upset, but she really doesn't know a lot. She thought that the teacher was just being honest, and she would try harder. That same night, Duke Alod, looking at childhood photos, remembered Saria compared to Castle. She was a calm child. But if she did get into trouble, it was always in a big way, like when, despite all the terrible rumors, she suddenly disappeared. And suddenly she returned with this exhausted child in her arms. Covered in blood from head to toe, the researcher greeted her father, whom she had not seen for a long time, in a friendly manner. The Duke found it hard to believe his eyes that his own daughter was standing in front of him. She disappeared without telling anyone where she had been or what she had been doing, and what kind of child this was, Alod asked, screaming. 2 years. Where had she been all this time? Saria laughed awkwardly and apologized to her father. But in the end, she didn't say anything, neither about where the child came from, nor about where she disappeared to. "Stupid child, how can you do this to your own father?" he asked with a sigh. "But he will protect Aika no matter what, at least she will." Alod did not have time to finish his thought, because there was a knock on the door of his room. And so Aika looked into the room, calling for her grandfather. He immediately asked his little one what happened so late at night. She needed to go to bed quickly, since she wanted to play with her grandfather tomorrow. Aika sheepishly told her grandfather that there was one place she wanted to go with him. Alod asked his granddaughter to say, and he would take her anywhere, and Aika admitted that she wanted to go to the Imperial Palace. "The Imperial Palace?" the grandfather asked awkwardly. He wanted to say something, but remembered his son's words. During the day, Cassell had asked him not to give in if the nut begged him to go to the Imperial Palace and not repeat the mistake again. If she wanted to read a book, there were other places, he answered awkwardly. For example, the Valiart Library. "No," Aika asked gloomily, saying that she really wanted to read in the old archive, and that was exactly what she needed. Aika really wanted to read in the place that her mother had left for her, she sincerely asked. The Duke was very touched by such a desire and such a sweet tone of his granddaughter. Giving in, he asked if she really wanted to go there, and Aika only had to answer with a simple look. Alod agreed if she would only be inside the old archive. This is a promise with her grandfather, and Aika promised him this. In the morning, Linda was getting Milady ready and asked her if she was really going, thinking that her guardian would be furious if he found out. But Aika calmly replied that everything would be fine, and her grandfather promised to keep it a secret from her uncle. As soon as her hair was done, she deftly jumped off the poof. She told Linda that she had dressed her and done her hair very beautifully, and thanked her joyfully. She had already said that she was going, but then Linda stopped the girl, saying that she had to put it on. Aika's face twisted in horror when she saw that ill-fated sign again. Serpens noticed how she was beaming with happiness. Aika asked him not to tease her. At the same time, the Duke asked his subordinate to give him the key to the archive. As he handed the key to Aika, he said that he needed to quickly talk to Count Hilo. "Okay," Aika exclaimed, and thanked her grandfather for bringing her here. Alad was absolutely inflamed as soon as he received a kiss from his granddaughter. Now he no longer wanted to go anywhere and leave his little girl. Aika said goodbye to him. Linda told Milady that she should under no circumstances go out without her, but Aika had no intention of going outside. She ran to the archives and whispered to Serpens if he felt anything. He felt that Lepus was somewhere here. This surprised Aika, but the snake said that the relics were like brothers and sisters to each other. Having approached the right place, all she had to do was enter it. But there was one thing. Linda watched my lady closely. How inconvenient it turns out. Linda couldn't take her eyes off her, she said worriedly to Serpens, and asked how to distract her. But the little snake chuckled and said that he seemed to know how and asked to simply leave it to him. After a while, the books fell off the shelf next to Linda. The girl wondered why they would fall out of nowhere. Serpens immediately whispered that this was their chance and told her to quickly go inside. And the next moment, having made a lot of noise, Lepus suddenly received guests in his monastery. Why did it feel like she fell from above this time? Ika asked, and Serpens replied that that was how spatial movement worked. The rabbit immediately galloped to Ika, and the girl was glad to see Lepus, because they had not seen each other for a long time. She warned that she had come here secretly, so she had to go before she was noticed, and promised to come again soon. "Ah," Lepus asked in surprise, and asked Ika not to leave, saying that he would help her. The rabbit immersed himself in time control, and having adjusted it, connected the internal and external. And so, in conclusion, he said Ika was very surprised and asked what it was. In front of her was the same one. Lepus linked her appearance from another timeline to show it as a projection from that time period. It might look a little weird, but people outside wouldn't notice she was gone. "Amazing," Ika said. Since the problem had been solved, Lepus asked if she would also tell him what had happened recently. He noticed that she had greatly improved her skills, since she had learned to see the future better, and all this was thanks to Serpens. "Unlike the one stuck here," the snake said. Lepus didn't know who he was talking about. Ika asked if they were arguing. She thought they were getting along. More importantly, he said that she needed to collect relics and fight the hunter, then how to recognize him and what to do when meeting him. Lepus thought about it and realized that she was right, so he said that he would explain now. Having asked to wait a minute, he flew off to get the book. It was a book that talked in detail about hunters. It was written in an ancient language, but she would be able to read it. A lawless robber, a predator. The girl read the title of the book. They instinctively pursue the energy of relics even before their abilities awaken. If she has already found the relic, then she should not miss the moment when the chills cover the whole body. This means that the predator is already nearby. "Chills?" Ika asked. Saria said that when you see a hunter or a trap, all your senses are concentrated in one point. After telling the story, Lepus asked if she had ever felt her body trembling or getting cold for no reason. It can't be, Ika realized in horror. And during the first meeting with Ryan, it was similar. And during the ball at grandfather's, so it was all this time. It seems, Ika Lepus reported worriedly, she had already felt something like this before. "Already, jumping up in horror," the rabbit exclaimed. He said it was too early. If they had found out she was a seeker, it would have happened much sooner. He didn't fully trust him, but now that she had Serpens, she would feel everything much more acutely. The snake said that he would definitely protect her. Looking at her watch, Lepus realized that it was already quite late, and it was time for her to go back. If too much time passes, the illusion may start to look strange. "Understood," the little girl replied. But then the rabbit gasped, as if he forgot to say something else. Ika stopped and asked what was wrong. Lepus asked Serpens in surprise why his voice and manner of speech were like that. The girl looked at the snake in surprise, which trembled in surprise. He asked him angrily if he was going to shut up. He could swallow him whole. "Well, go ahead," the rabbit said sarcastically. He told Ika that his voice was usually much lower and he didn't use that strange manner of speaking. "Strange?" the little girl asked, stunned. She would not have said that, and asked Serpens if it was true. The next moment, the snake sheepishly returned to his former voice and said that it wasn't like he was hiding it on purpose. It's just that when they first met, she was really scared, and he thought if he spoke more softly, it would seem less scary. "What?" Ika said in shock. As it turned out, Serpens' voice was very deep. She asked her companion if he spoke like that for her sake, and even changed his voice on purpose. She exclaimed that she would not be afraid of him even if he became huge, and his current voice was very cool. So she said that he could speak as he felt comfortable, which touched Serpens very much. "Okay, I will," he said in his deep voice, and Lepus was touched. She met with Lepus and gathered information, but the two are at odds, possibly due to their different species. In any case, as the girl crawled out from under the closet, she thought that she needed to go back before her uncle found out. But then, raising her head, she was dumbfounded. "What?" she asked, not believing her eyes, and screamed in horror. "Uncle!" "Well, well," Castle said angrily. "What an unexpected meeting with his beloved niece." "Why is it that the one who should be sitting at home ended up here?" Aika asked anxiously. "How did he know?" Cassel asked Aika de Valiart what he said would happen if she disobeyed him. Aika nervously laughed and asked what exactly. She couldn't remember, and then her uncle angrily asked if she wanted him to help her remember. "No," she screamed, and immediately they lifted her up like a kitten by the scruff of the neck. "Just not this!" the little girl screamed, stretching out and crying. Once in the carriage, Aika thought that they would start scolding her when they went home. However, the uncle did not say a word. He remained silent like a fish that had lost its tongue. This had been going on for half an hour already, and Aika was thinking about what to do, hoping that he would speak himself. But having finally given in, the girl awkwardly called her uncle. And making puppy eyes, she asked her uncle if he was angry, having chosen the option to be cute. "And she calls it a conversation," Castle exclaimed in amazement at his niece. The little girl trembled with fear, and Castle realized that it was better not to scream. It was effective. His uncle's anger softened. The man sighed heavily and sat down next to her and asked with concern what to do with her. The little girl noticed that his gaze had become warmer. It seemed that he was no longer angry. She immediately pressed herself against her uncle and giggled. Castle asked if she was happy that what she had planned had worked out, but Aika simply loved him. He asked his niece if everything was okay during his absence. Yes, everything was fine, Aika answered. "Although, you know," she continued, swinging her legs, "it was great with Grandpa." However, she missed him very much. Cassel was very embarrassed and said that she couldn't say such a thing. The girl giggled. She asked her uncle if he forgave her. He hadn't decided yet. He answered trifles. Aika didn't like being scolded, but she was glad that her uncle returned early. The next morning, Aika rushed to her uncle and exclaimed that it was time to get up. Cassel reminded the short-legged one that he had told her not to wake him up, and the little one exclaimed that she was not a short-legged one. But being high was so much fun, and she asked her uncle to shake her. Cassel was amazed that she even liked it. Aika was hungry and woke her uncle up for breakfast. Castle sighed and agreed, so he sent the girl into the hall to change. Sophia was very surprised by the gentleman's quick appearance, and he was looking for a nut. The girl ran out from behind him. The man asked where she had disappeared to if she had complained so much about hunger. The girl showed what she was running after and asked her uncle to take a look. They said that a museum had opened. Serpent said that there was a lot of stuff there, which meant that there could be artifacts there. We can't miss the chance. She invited him to go with her to a place where there were many strange and outlandish things. Cassel asked if she was interested. "What?" asked Aika, and said that she didn't know. She had never been there, and asked if she could take Ryan with her. The man replied that her uncle had not yet decided, and she began to whine. But suddenly he asked his niece if she thought 2 million would persuade him. 2 million in money, Aika asked cheerfully, and immediately agreed. And at that very moment she gave her uncle 2 kisses. He was pleasantly embarrassed, but in his usual manner said that if she misbehaved, he would take her away. They agreed that Ryan would go too, and Castle only reminded her to send an invitation letter. They were getting ready to leave, and Castle asked Aika what she had been doing since she had just left. Closing her mouth, Aika suggested that her uncle hurry up, saying that Ryan was already tired of waiting. But then the uncle stopped the girl and asked what was wrong with her mouth. "No," Aika said with a chuckle, shaking her head. "He's not wobbling at all." "What's he wobbling about?" he asked. Half an hour ago, Linda discovered that Aika's tooth was moving more than before and was likely to fall out soon. She was obliged to report to the master that, Aika chirped anxiously, it was impossible. If the uncle found out, he would immediately rip it out. "And he will tease her, short-legged window in the mouth." Linda laughed and told Miss that this is a sign that she is growing. He will be glad to hear. But still, she begged Linda not to tell him yet, worried about being bullied. Linda said that everything would be fine, but don't feed your uncle bread. Give him a chance to make fun of him. He wasn't supposed to know this, and as soon as they arrived, Aika immediately jumped out of the carriage. Castle asked the nut not to run so fast, but suddenly Aika was stopped by a familiar voice. Ryan, standing nearby, called out to Aika, and when she noticed him, he greeted her sweetly. "We haven't seen each other for a long time," Aika said, and that the outfit suited him very well. The boy thanked her. But Aika was much nicer, he said. And Aika, embarrassed, but laughing sweetly, thanked him. The valet greeted the Marquis and thanked him for taking the time to visit the young master. Taking the cap, Aika asked Ryan if he was ready. Of course, he answered enthusiastically. And putting on her clothes, Aika called him to go and find all the evidence in this museum. "Yes, Detective Aika," Ryan answered. Holding hands, they entered the newly opened museum. But then Ryan called out to Aika and thanked her for inviting him along. And he complimented her that the raincoat suited her too. The little girl thanked him and said that he looked cool. And Castle, who was watching them, wondered who she was so stupid after. Finally, he told the nuts not to act up and not to get into trouble, and the children agreed. There really were a lot of interesting things in the museum. She had never seen a drawing like that. Castle knew that this was ceramics taken from the depths of the East 100 years ago. Aika's eyes sparkled at the boy's knowledge, and Ryan asked his friend why she was looking at him like that. There was nothing written on the exhibit, but he somehow understood that Ryan was actually doing some preliminary research. He said he was just looking at it. Aika was surprised and amazed at how much Ryan knew. Oh, suddenly she realized that her view of the boy was blocked and, raising her head, she asked her uncle what he was doing. He was shielding Ryan and she asked him to leave. What? Cassell asked. He remembers. She said that she had no one except him, and her uncle was bored. The kid had a brilliant eye. His niece was quite a character, but it was too early. Sometimes James forgot which one of them was the child. He awkwardly told Tamana that now he understood what he was. The tour of the museum continued. The first step they took was looking at the artifacts. Aika was surprised, and Ryan told her everything. The next step was to explore the treasures and try on the jewelry. And then they took a sip of truth, frolicking with the object that bit the lie. Today was a lot of fun, especially because Ryan explained everything, and the last stage was a chance to exchange impressions. But suddenly Aika was overcome by a familiar but such a terrible feeling. She noticed a shiny, beautiful horseshoe-shaped decoration and wanted to take it with her. But suddenly I felt even worse. A shudder ran through her body and the girl thought anxiously, "It can't be." At that very moment she looked back at the hunter, who seemed to be trying to grab her. She sighed in alarm. He was already here. She needed to get out quickly before he found them. But then Uncle's question pulled her out of her anxious attack. He asked Oreshka why she was suddenly hanging, and her friend asked if she was okay. Aika gasped and said that she was just thinking and thought with relief that everything was fine. She was able to change the future. Cassell told her not to lag behind, because she said she wanted to buy a souvenir. She mentally spoke to Serpens, and he confirmed to her that he was a hunter and that it was better for her to simply avoid him for now. The girl said that she would quickly go to the toilet and ask them to go without her. Castle said that it was not worth it alone. "No," Aika exclaimed, "she will be back soon," and asked to buy her a horseshoe, the leftmost one in the display case. Castle didn't have time to find out anything from Oreshko before the girl immediately ran away. He never found out what happened, but left everything to Aika. The man went to the souvenir display case and found the horseshoe he needed and asked her when she had noticed it. There are so many different ones, and she chose the ugliest one. Ryan told the Marquise that he would also like a horseshoe. What? And he too? Asked Cassell, and thought how he was a little sly fellow. "Well, well!" Suddenly a voice came from behind. Recognizing Marquis Legier in person, Cassell tensed up. But soon he saw the man and told Duke Deslin that they had not seen each other for a long time. The old man sighed. Noticing the young Lord Calpodius with him, the boy greeted him. "Yes," he answered very pleasantly, but he did not notice his niece, whom the Marquis had been so fond of lately. Cassell, sensing bad intentions, gloomily asked what relation she had to him. "True, it's none of his business," he said, immediately leaving, calling it simple curiosity, and then said that he had business to attend to. He hoped to see Aika next time, but Cassell said time would tell if there would be a chance to meet again. The man thought with indignation that this slippery guy had forgotten it in the museum, and only spoiled his mood. The sun was already setting behind the horizon when Aika finally came out of the museum to her uncle and Ryan. Castle asked if she had fallen asleep there. He was about to send divers, but Aika simply got lost and asked where her ice cream was. Here, Ryan happily handed it to his friend, saying that he took one for her too. She thanked her friend, but then the uncle asked the nut if she had forgotten anything. "Ah, a souvenir!" she exclaimed, and her uncle gave it to her and headed for the carriage. Aika began to examine the horseshoe. In her vision it shimmered, perhaps because the future had changed, she thought. But suddenly Ryan gasped and called out to Aika, and the girl responded. The boy said that he had a lot of fun today and promised to take her somewhere next time. He asked if they would play again, and Aika happily agreed, saying that she would wait. Every other day, Aika spent time with Serpens, who said that she would wear a hole in him. Anyway, it was a pity that he couldn't find the artifact in the museum, although he didn't expect it to be easy. Aika was glad that she got a cool souvenir. The snake praised the girl for doing a great job of escaping from the hunter. Miss Logan Belfoy called and asked if he could come in. The girl gasped, saying that the teacher was already here. For today, he prepared training material and suggested that she practice by copying words from the book into a notebook. Aika accepted the task and got down to business under the guidance of the teacher. But suddenly the man said that he had heard that the former chancellor and His Majesty were very close. Yes, Aika confirmed. Mom said that they were friends, and then Logan asked if Miss had ever met the Emperor. What? The girl asked in shock, noticing in horror the scarlet aura around the man. Why is he asking? Aika thought anxiously, and the horseshoe in her pocket reacted to the threat. Serpens advised Miss to simply say no. The girl trusted him, and so she answered the teacher that she had never seen him and had not received the letter he asked. If I were to lie, then to the end, the snake said. Talking about his mother had nothing to do with the lesson, so why did he continue to ask? As she thought, Logan muttered, seeming less interested than expected. Then perhaps, Chancellor, he said, but then the girl interrupted the teacher. And confidently, discontentedly, she asked him how her mother was connected with the occupation. Logan froze in fear. Had he really lost his vigilance because of her naive appearance right on target? He tried to justify it by saying that it was not directly related, but speaking is an integral part of learning. When he found out that she had not been to the events, he said there was no need to be ashamed. Aika tensed up. Was there anything bad about that? He asked if she had a secure login, meetings or other, even the smallest concerns. Serpens said that this teacher was talking a lot of nonsense and asked what he was going to teach her anyway. As soon as the lesson ended, Logan immediately left the room and exhaled, saying that it was not easy with children. Be that as it may, it seems the Marquis has not guessed the plan, the sly man thought. Only he will find proof. The fact that she is the illegitimate child of the Emperor, that person will recognize his merits. You just need to play a role. At night, Serpens called Aika and said irritably that he needed to tell the adults and warn them. The teacher was suspicious, but the little girl calmed the snake and said that she was fine, so she asked him not to be angry. Serpens shouted that he was not okay, and Aika agreed that she would tell him tomorrow, but suddenly she heard the sound of a horse, and the next moment a silver horse rushed past her. Aika was horrified and sharply asked Serpens if he had just heard this. That, he asked. The sound of a horse, she exclaimed excitedly. Is it really that uncle has arrived? But the snake said that it cannot be heard from here. After discussing this situation with Serpens, the little girl went to bed. And again, as if in a dream, the silver horse galloped again. She thought that her uncle was still here. But suddenly she woke up because of the light that was shining straight into her eyes. And then she jumped up, realizing where the light was coming from and the sound of the horseshoe was coming from. The girl immediately began to wake up Serpens, who, half asleep, asked Aika what was going on. But noticing the light in the night, he turned around. He was struck by such a strong energy that he decided that it was an ordinary souvenir, but suddenly it really was a relic. The snake asked the girl if she could awaken, but Aika was not sure. She needed to know the name, and as soon as she took the horseshoe in her hands, it went out. Serpens said that if they go to the archive, they will find at least an approximate name. Aika was worried that her uncle would not let her go. Of course, the snake was inspired. This was their first find, and he really wanted to awaken her. No one had ever discovered them so quickly. Serpens hadn't even finished, when suddenly the door to Aika's room opened. She was very surprised to see her uncle in front of her, and Cassel asked in surprise why she was not sleeping. Aika said that she woke up and asked if he had just arrived. Insomnia, asked Cassel. The man said that if she stayed out late, the nut would not have time to ripen and would turn into a thin twig. No, Aika exclaimed. Linda said that she was growing well and had become taller than Ryan. Even so, a nut is still a nut, explained the uncle. There was a short pause, and then Cassel asked his niece why she was staring so intently. The little girl awkwardly said that she wanted to ask her uncle for something. What, again, the Imperial Palace? Asked Cassel. Aika asked in surprise how he guessed. The man explained that she had been talking only about him lately. Aika had been begging that she really wanted to go there. Well, maybe he'll let me have a peek before bed, Cassel replied, which the little girl asked in surprise. Having said that she would find out everything on the spot, her uncle carried her into the dungeon. Aika said in fear that Linda had said that there was nothing interesting here. And now there is, explained Cassel. And now they are approaching the right place. Seeing everything in the basement, Aika asked her uncle what it was and whether he was building a secret base. And why does he need it, the man asked, explaining that it was a teleportation artifact, and with its help she would go straight to the archive. That is, she will no longer interfere with him going to the palace, honestly, asked Aika out of the blue. And what does she think, he asked. If she refuses, she will pester her grandfather until he breaks. One prohibition won't stop him. He asked the little girl not to kill herself during the sorties and to use it. It was a gift from him and the Emperor. From His Majesty, the little girl asked, touched. Uncle asked why he stayed away. Didn't she notice how much effort went into the creation? But before he could finish speaking, Aika threw herself on his neck with all her love. And kissing, she said that Uncle is the best, she loves him. Only at such moments, he asked. No, Aika answered, she always loves. He hugged her back, and the little girl said that now she would really obey. Well, thought Cassell, maybe it's for the best, all for Aika's sake, this path is safer.